All right, thanks everybody for joining us for yet another, I don't even know what number show this is, but we've been doing a series on SHOT Show 2023. This will be, I think, my 18th SHOT Show, and Clover's coming. Fifth.
Oh yeah.
So at the Sands, we've gone through some industry changes or development or evolution, I guess, as far as the technology and the guns and the focus and the people in the community and the marketing, the industry is evolving over the years that SHOT Show's been going on, and uh, what SHOT Show does for the community, what it offers, and what it's able to do has been evolving. So with that in mind, we've been doing these shows kind of focusing on SHOT, what it is, what's so good about it, and tactics and tricks and stuff. And then we've been leading up to a couple of conversations that we wanted to host. One is for first time attendees, and that's what today is all about. We've got a bunch of people who we know of that are attending SHOT Show for the first time this year. So I'll let Clover kind of chat here for a bit, but we've got the link out there if you're interested and if you're interested in joining the conversation and you're going to SHOT Show for the first time this year. Use the link, jump in. We're using StreamYard. You don't need any logins or anything. But go ahead, Clover. What's the point of today's show, I guess, or if you want to say anything?
Mainly, everybody's situation. Well, first of all, I'll say that, yeah, I don't know how many weeks we've been into this as well, but I know we only got like 4 weeks or something like that left before SHOT Show is here. So rapidly approaching. But yeah, mainly for those first time folks to jump in. Hopefully, we've got a few out there that can jump in for just a few minutes, if nothing else. And the link is out there in the live chat. But uh, mainly because SHOT Show, even though you've got people that have gone forever, you got people that have gone sporadically, you've got people that have never been. Everybody, as far as their experiences, over the years and stuff like that, always different. And it's the same way. There's some similarities, I'm sure, with and we've discussed some of those with first time people. Their first year SHOT Show, a lot of the same questions and things like that. Um, but it's really hard to get off into nuance, right? So, you may be going to SHOT Show for the first time, and you may have some ideas about, well, this is the way I want to approach it, or how do I, if this is my goal, what are some things I need to look out for, right? There may be some specific questions related to um, your channel, your style content, that sort of thing, that maybe that we can address specifically, uh, from that perspective. And a lot of folks have been participating out there in the live chat over the weeks as we've done these, and there's been some great conversation out there. There's been some great questions and other things, but it's much different to try to back and forth in text um, than it is, having a conversation where you can follow up, where you can emphasize certain words, that sort of thing. So today's show, offers the opportunity for those first timers, or, maybe, I wouldn't even say, I wouldn't even say necessarily first timers. And the reason I say that is, I know some people that went last year for 1 day or 2 days, and from my experience of watching them, they never once hit the media room. They um, at first they entered through Caesars, and they didn't even realize until they were in Caesars for 2 or 3 hours that there was a whole huge other portion of the show. Um, so they did not have um, the support structure that we talked about, right? The camaraderie, the friendship, the uh, whatever you want to call it. Um, to be aware kind of those things their first year. So maybe they seen their first year uh, as a bust in a lot of ways, and so they're hyped up and wanting to tackle it um, a little bit better this year. So I think potentially we got some room for stuff like that as well. Like we do plan on doing a what I would call a veterans not, military, of course, but, veterans of shot, people that have gone type show uh, in the coming weeks. Uh, and we're going to try to do that as well. So if you're out there and you fit that mold, you've gone for quite a few years, either as media or an exhibitor or an attendee, gun shop, whatever it might be. There'll be some opportunities in the future. So, um, yeah, yeah. With that, I don't know where to go. Gee, um, outside of that, until we get somebody that maybe can jump in and give us some stuff to talk about.
Thanks. So I've been clicking around over here trying to get my thing logged in so that I can pin the link. We're talking about first timers going to SHOT Show. Now that's a unique thing. So first timers, somebody's been there before, has a lot of reference. So we planned on doing one with people who've been going for a while. We can have that conversation for sure. So I'd still like to leave it for first timers today. However, if nobody shows up, then I guess that's a little different thing. 500 is in here. Are you planning on going to SHOT Show? Or are you just jumping on the link there? So this is basically for sheaf fires. I'm not sure if Milsurp Duo is heading out to SHOT Show this year for his first year or not, or if he's in a category like what Clover was saying. I can't remember. We've got, what's he supposed to be called now? MK Outdoors? I forgot what budget calls him.
MK Outdoor Journal.
I was putting it in MGs all over, or MJ all over the place.
Yeah, MK Outdoor Journal is budget. I'm not real sure. I know he was. Well, he's not at work. The conversation I had with him, he's not at work, but I think it has something to do with the shift he works and sleep schedule type thing or something. And he was going to try to get up and make it, but who knows? I mean, and we can keep the room open, and obviously we've ran a couple of hours on these shows before, so I mean we can tackle another topic if we can. And there is sheep hours. And by the way, that logo, our new logo, is rocking awesome.
Yep, your mic working? You're in here. You're muted. There we go. And we're not hearing you though.
Yep, no audio. So check the settings and make sure that you're.
Well, let's talk about this.
How about now?
There we go.
Have you used what is this called? StreamYard before?
I have, but it's been a while, so I had to make some adjustments. How are you both? Thank you for inviting me.
Jumping in.
Yeah.
So first thing, I think I'll use that as an opportunity to mention. I like StreamYard. I used to like YouTube's Hangouts, and then there's now a ton of them because of all the chaos of the last couple of years and everybody outsourcing and working from remote locations and stuff. Live streaming and these kind of chats or whatever people are calling them now have become way more common, and there are more. So there's the Zoom is a big one, and then OBS or something. Like there's some other ways that people get online. A big one, an important one, is guntube.org has its own streaming. It uses a very secure, high-tech streaming service. Now it's a little bit too much for some people who can't figure out their phones or whatever, but if you can deal with a couple of people who can't deal with a very secure version of a streaming service, which guntube.org provides, then I'd recommend learning that one for sure. But the same way you might learn how to do some things on a phone versus a computer versus Apple versus Android, you want to know some basic things on these different platforms. I'd say going to SHOT Show and getting ready for the after SHOT Show. It's probably a good idea to become familiar, create accounts, and have practiced a little bit with each of these live systems. Because if you meet somebody going to be talking about their backpack or their new thing or their boot or their holster or something, and they say, oh yeah, we have a regular chat on Zoom. Well, if you've never used Zoom before, go in being clunky versus jump right in. And it just makes you, it just gives you that confidence and that comfortableness or whatever of like not worrying about the tech. So I think with a month to go, I don't think that's too big a task to give everybody to just log on to the various platforms, just in case. If nothing else, you might find why yours is so good or why people use another one, right? But anyway, I just wanted to use that as an example. But thanks for jumping in. I know you've got limited time. So did you have any questions? You've been following, I think, a bunch of our shows.
I know it has been extremely helpful. I am thankful for you guys having this, being first time. Certainly, I'm so excited. I think even coming up, like you all talking about it as we get closer, I'll be just, chatting it up on different things. But you all kind of covered it early on. But I wanted to ask about the range day. And since I'm flying in from Florida, I won't have a vehicle, just staying, close and riding the monorail for range day specifically. I know you talked about the bus. Is that in? Will that work? What do I need to plan for if I don't have any other transportation for that?
Was
And
it
how
going
do
to
you
be?
get the tickets before?
Is it going to be the two of you?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I would say that you need to get your now the SHOT Show site is going to give you the areas where your badges basically can be picked up, right?
Well, when do you arrive? That's the first part, because
Yeah.
it
On
makes a difference.
Saturday.
Okay, nice.
Saturday. Okay. Yeah, you
Yes.
got all kinds of time. Right on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Most people are arriving on Saturday. Seems like this year. So yeah, typically what we do is Sunday, usually evening time. Let's say mid evening. Obviously not late because I think the media room closes out at like 5 or 5:30 or something. We go there and get our passes now. Historically, and I haven't looked because I don't do this, but again, the SHOT Show site will. That's a tongue twister. You got to be careful with that. It will have the information. Sometimes you can pick them up at the airport. There's different locations, right? But you definitely want to get those before Monday morning for range day. You definitely want to do that. Then and that also gives you, whether you arrange to meet up, with other people. I mean, it gives us a time to hang out and chat.
Sure.
That's a thing
Well,
too.
hold on. So you can pick up your badge on Sunday. So that's what he's saying. Pick up your badge
Yeah.
on Sunday. So that's over. So on Monday, if you have no other options, is renting a car out of the question, like financially wise?
I mean, we could, but it would only be for that
just one
day,
day.
right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
You don't
And
have to.
that's the
Yeah.
big deal. You don't have to for all, but if you just, because you got two people and you want to deal with it and not worry, experience every slow thing that happens, you might want to rent a car. Because you
Okay.
can get on the bus, and I've been on the bus in Florida, so I was kind of the opposite. I went to Florida and had to take the bus because I didn't have. Well, we wanted to get a rental car. We found out our credit card wasn't a credit card. Couldn't rent a rental car. Okay, great. We don't travel a lot. Big deal. We walked to the show and we used the bus. Now going on the bus, the shuttle, whatever you want to call it, to the range in Florida was way farther. So we had a lot more time on the bus. I shouldn't say that. It felt like it was a long time, but you're going to have some time on that bus. So making silver linings, you're going to have time to talk to people. Probably gun shop owners, more than likely. Maybe some other content creators, but probably just people that work at gun shops and work in factories and stuff. As a content creator, I mean, come on, that could be incredibly awesome. But you also have to get up in the morning on your way to the first day of SHOT Show and be on ready and ready to talk to people and hope that they're in the same boat and not be discouraged when they're not, right? Because some of them have been to SHOT Show for 18 years and they just have to go to the range day because people are going to ask them about this gun and they hate 9mm as much as I do, and they're in a different mode than some of us. So, but there is that opportunity. So the bus can be awesome. Coming back from the range on the bus is a whole different thing because you decide when you're getting on the bus. You decide, oh, there's that person I've been wanting to talk to. I'll wait till they get on the bus, right? Or here's my friend I just made. Let's get on the bus together and have this ride home. And we're going to be able to talk and prepare for the next day. So the bus can be amazing. It can also be horrible if you're by yourself, horrible if everything goes wrong, horrible if the bus breaks down. Can you imagine getting on a bus and having it break down and everybody's waiting an extra hour or 15 minutes or 20 minutes? Is going to feel like an hour on your way to go do something awesome. So it never happened. I'm just saying, like, what ifs. But so your options are the bus or rent a car. If car's within the realm of something, renting the car, you're going to have to pick up the car. You got Saturday and Sunday, unless you got plans for Sunday. Have you been to Vegas before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you're not even worried about learning Vegas or like sightseeing. So you've got literally all day Sunday to pick up your badge, which you can't even pick up till noon or afternoon or something, right, Clover? 3? It's like in the afternoon.
Yeah, like 3 to 5 or 3 to 5:30, I think, or something. Yeah.
And that's like the best possible. Now, we do it the old-fashioned way. They keep changing SHOT Show around us. Now you can go to these kiosks and get badges printed out of places or something, can't you? Like there's other options that I'm not aware of. Like at
There
the
are other
airport and stuff.
locations listed on the site. I'm not familiar with what they are, but there historically have been. Yes.
So we're kind of handicapping ourselves by going and picking up our badges because we like picking up our badges. We get to go pick up our badges. We don't have to, but we can go pick up our badges. We get to check out this building ahead of time. We get to go check out parking situation ahead of time. We get to go look at the show potentially ahead of time. We get to hang out with other content creators ahead of time. And whatever, say, hey, that's if you got nothing else to do on Sunday. We've been there Sundays where it's chaotic and we run in there and run back out and I wish they would have had a thing. So you've got a couple of options. So it depends on Clover's 100% right. You got to worry about your badge first. So you got to have a badge to get into Media Day. Otherwise, well, I think you have to. I don't think they even hand them out there anymore because it was such a chaotic mess. But the big thing is parking. So if you're going to get a car and you're going to get it for just that day, what are you going to end up realistically? You're going to get it at like 9 on Sunday night or something. You're going to drop it back off at like 9 on Monday night. Right. That would be the way I do it, some kind in the evening like that. So now you go pick it up at your leisure at 9. You drive, go eat dinner or something, get up, go to the range. If you're driving, you want to get there earlier, the closer you're going to park. The farther away you're going to park, not a big deal. Just adding a little bit more walk into your life for the week. Mm-hmm. But then you drive home at your leisure, stop at a couple of gun shops, hang out someplace you wanted to go check out, bring some people home. You made friends. Now you got a place, way to drive people back to their hotels, hang out, have dinner with somebody, go take your car back. And now you Uber back or whatever you do, and you're good to go for Monday. If you got the money to do that.
Minutes, right? Is that 40-minute drive? About
probably pretty close. Okay. I would add another option. And I see that Chris from the 740 is out there. I don't know. He said he was going to be on a tractor or something today, but link is out there. Scroll up if you can't find it. Chris, we'll drop it again. And I know Mike just jumped in, but real quick to follow up with gWebs, because this is another option. A lot of people are getting in on Saturday, right? That leaves Saturday evening, that leaves all day Sunday, and then you got Monday morning as range day. There's a lot of time to communicate and find out who's got a vehicle and who has an extra seat or two in a vehicle and things of that nature. And it may be a thing of, oh, well, I need to Uber from whatever location you're staying to their Airbnb or whatever the case may be, right? And then ride to range day with them, and then they can, of course, drop you off or whatever, make those arrangements, right? So there's plenty of time, that's what I'm saying, to make arrangements to hitch a ride with somebody, I think, as well. Sure. And I think just from the folks that are staying in our location, I think vehicle-wise, I think there's enough just there to make it work. And then when I think about extended friends and colleagues and other things that'll be in Vegas, and I'm sure folks as well, Chief Fires, that are going, that, that's a possibility. And that's a whole other set of like the bus and having those interactions, and, like having your own vehicle or renting, you can have, certain interactions. Being able to hitch a ride with people works in the same capacity a lot of times as staying in a room, staying in an Airbnb with people, because you've got that support structure right there. You can ask questions, you can as they pop up, you pull into range day, and for the first time you're seeing range day and the layout and the scope, and your mind may be racing with 1,000 questions, and you've got people right there in the front seat that can answer those questions, like, oh, okay, over here is where you want what you want to go do, or over there is what you've been talking about you want to see. And you can get that instant feedback.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of torn. I'm just gonna let it roll as it is. And if we find it necessary to rent a car, then we will. But at least we
have. I don't know if it's necessary. I just wanted to put that out there as an option, because what Clover's saying is true. However, let's go the other way and look at the reality of it. And if you've got a click, then great. But if you don't click, then that's annoying. That's then it's like, oh, I got to wait for so and so. Oh, we're going to ride you, but now we got a flat tire or something. And oh, we were renting a car, but then we ended up renting this thing with 2 seats instead. So now we got to the place. So there's a bunch of stuff that can stack. It can all be perfect and work great, but it can also not. So that's why I'm thinking on first year, I'm thinking ride sharing and planning on others is maybe more. I'd recommend that for people that have been there a couple of times, kind of know what they're missing, know what they're risking. People that haven't, I want you to just get there, enjoy it, and know that you're, I want to say independent, but like you're not dependent on others who may or may not be as interested in your first time as you are. The buses are going to go like every 15 minutes. Or I don't know what I don't take them, but they seem like they're going every once in a while. I think Milsurp Duo said he took them last year, so he'll probably know the schedule. But it's not like there's one shuttle. So
Right.
I guess if we haven't actually said the big picture, the media day starts at, I forget, let's say 8 o'clock, because I have no idea. Let's say it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. The buses probably start at 8:30 or 9 or something. Like they don't start right at the beginning. So that means they're probably picking you up right when the show starts, I think. And then they're driving you out there. It takes, would you say 40 minutes, something like that? It depends on traffic, I suppose. The buses probably got a pretty quick way to get there, but they also probably have more congestion than us, just getting away from the buildings and stuff. But as far as I understand, the buses leave from Expo, and then there's probably shuttles that get you from hotels to Expo. Or you can, there's actually not a good monorail to the Expo. But however it is, I'm sure they're facilitating it so that you can get on these buses every so often, whatever is it, every half an hour, probably every half an hour. And then you're going to be there for as much time as you want. And then they start doing the opposite. They just start leaving every half an hour. So they're fairly convenient, and they're not like you're going to be getting a bunch of stuff where you have to worry about traveling with luggage. I mean, it's full of people that are doing this one event. So it's not like it's not going to be conducive to what you're doing. It's just that like you're I guess losing an opportunity to personalize it, I guess. If I don't know, I say I'm just so much like I've always driven, and it just was frustrating to drive the bus. I hate to throw the bus out there as an option. It's probably be a pretty good option. I just wanted to throw out there that like opposite.
Thank you, guys.
Ride sharing. So okay, so Chicago Mike, you going?
I thought about it, but I mean it's kind of at the last minute. So the type of work that I do, I would hate to just take off work like that.
Well, it's not an option if you don't have a pass at this point. I don't know if they're handing out passes anymore. I haven't heard anything that media is full, but they stop just the size of the show, the scale of it. They only do media stuff for a certain amount of time.
That's all good. I mean, I'm going to the next event for sure, but SHOT Show I won't be going. So I mean, I'm not tripping. It's all good. I mean,
Right on. Well, we're talking about SHOT Show and people that are there for their first time. Chris is out there. I don't know if he has a chance. He's doing a run right now.
Working.
No
right
worries.
now. Yeah.
So if he's got any specific questions, if he's able to chat and type them in there, feel free. So as far as the media day goes, I don't know. We went all over the place, and this is the problem. Both of us, Clover and I, have been going to the show for a long time, and we both have opinions on stuff. We've both done things different ways. So it's tough to give you a concise, here's an answer, because best we can do is say, here's a bunch of answers, and then here's some editorial on them. So feel free to shut us up or ask a more focused question or something so that we're less rambling. But as far as media day, any other questions that we've been all over the place? Do we even answer?
No, you guys answered my questions directly. I appreciate it. If you're still on at the top of the hour, I do want to pop back on after my 10:30 call, if that's okay. If you're still.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely be on because you're one of the number one reasons we're doing this show. So feel free. Don't be in a rush, but we'll be here.
I do have another question. So I'll answer that. I'll ask that when I pop back on.
That works.
Okay.
What you shared is awesome.
Yeah, right on. Looking forward to seeing how you experience your first show and how good it is for you.
It'll be awesome. Okay, I'll be back.
All right. So Milsurp is saying, we'll mention it to her when she comes back. If you wanted to take the ride, if you wanted to ride the bus, I can meet you at the media center that morning. We have a couple of people in our group. This is their first time as well. Clover, what do you think about a bunch of first timers hanging out together at SHOT Show? Is that better than first timers partnering with people that have been there forever?
Snob would be one of the ones to answer that question. So if we move into, and I mean, obviously we want to give priority to the first timers that are going. So I don't know how you feel with certain people jumping in temporarily on temporary topics, but him, Gizzard, who am I thinking? Obnoxious Sarge, like that whole crew kind of all went together, right? And I mean, it looks like they did very well. I mean, they were able to play off of each other. That helped with approaching companies, and it helped with their confidence level and other things, because they didn't feel intimidated, I guess maybe would be the word. And I could totally be putting words in Snob's mouth. This is just my perception outside looking in on that group. So I definitely think that there's a benefit. Now, on the flip side, when I went for the first time, it was basically Ghost and myself. I mean, you were around and accessible, which was invaluable, but it's not like we stayed, together or anything, right? Traveled together type thing. And so that was great because you're kind of on the same level. But it's also, I could see a benefit, because I felt like when we had Rogue last year with us, I kind of felt like, and again, this is outside looking in and putting words in people's mouths. So I don't, certainly I'm not trying to do that, but it felt like he benefited from having some experience there. I can remember, not specifics of conversation, but can remember, conversations in the car, conversations on the balcony, at the Airbnb, whatever.
Conversations with who? Ghost?
Rogue. That
Oh,
was,
okay. Last year.
that was, sort of like we've been talking about on these shows. I mean, something would have gone on that day, and we're like, yeah, you may think about navigating that this way or doing that this way or whatever, right? And he's like, oh, I never thought about that. Well, of course you didn't. You've never been before, so, not knowing what you don't know is not a bad thing, right? But I think there's benefits both ways. I think if you can get a mix, I think a mix is
Yeah, mix is probably the best, but you're not going to go wrong either way.
No,
but some ways can be more useful, right?
No, and I think you're right. I mean, a lot of us tend to live in our own bubbles. A lot of people that turn cameras on and get on, that's a YouTuber thing in general. Being an introvert, and not branching out and not being a part of the bigger community and not being good at relationships and communication and talking with people and all of that. And so I think that grouping up, right, regardless of how you finagle that group, I think it really helps with that type of a psyche, or in that specific circumstance, I should say.
All right, so this is for first time. Oh wait, I'm interrupting you in the middle of something.
Nah, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I thought you were pausing there. So I was just saying that since this is sort of for beginners, and we're hoping that beginners would jump in. Now, I didn't send out links to everybody I knew who's for the first time, so I didn't want to not be sending links to people I don't know are going for the first time. So I opted to just drop the link in the chat there. So if you're going to SHOT Show for the first time, feel free to jump in. And the people that are going to SHOT Show for the first time, feel free to jump in. And the idea is to answer your question specifically, right? We're doing this as an exercise to chat up SHOT Show because it's cool, and the facets of SHOT Show that most people are ignoring or not aware of, probably, or also ignoring because they don't like the facets that they're not good at. And then to make everybody's experience better, but also to make the show better, because it's better when it's explained, it's better when it's participated in, it's better with participation and all that. So, or better with everybody being part of it, and that's something that doesn't get addressed too often. I mean, the show itself attempts at it always, but it can only do generic, hey, here's us. If you need any help, here's our resources. So when it gets to specific things, they don't have time to have, or at least they don't have the resources to have a crew of people hired on as ambassadors. So we're attempting to do something like that. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say all this information that you're giving out about SHOT Show just made me want to go now, but maybe too late.
Well, like I say, it is because they are huge, right? So we're looking at something like 60,000 attendees, or am I crazy? I know it's in the tens of thousands of attendees. Something like 6,000 of them are media, and that's only a percentage of the show, right? Or is it 2,000 are media? It's 2,000 or media. I think I'm exaggerating. I'm missing all my
You're
numbers.
you're going gWebs?
Yeah, this will be my 18th year if I can get there. I mean, it's always weird
Oh,
because
wow.
money and stuff. But even if I got to just go for a day or something, I'll go to say I've been there, just to kind of monitor what the growth is in the industry and stuff. That's the part I enjoy. But
'Cause I just started getting into the YouTube thing a couple of months ago, and you know, I met a lot of great people uh, throughout the, you know, social media, and they have talked about it. I just never thought of about getting into the SHOT Show, because I was like, oh, you know, I've been
Yeah.
working a lot and I haven't really got into, you know, looking it up and doing all the research. So,
Yeah.
but
It
that's
has
what
to
these shows are
be.
about.
It has to be, in my opinion, it has to be an active decision. I hear that a lot where creators, and again, Snob out there can speak to this. Uh, but Chris in the 740 was that way. He's going in January, here in the next few weeks, for the first time. But where, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, but where people ham haul around. Oh, yeah, I might go. I might. Right. You have to make an active decision and go, wait a minute. No. This is awesome. I get the brevity of it.
mhm.
I'm in the content creation. I want this to be a thing. You know, I'm going. You have to make that decision. It has to be first, right? Is to absolutely make that decision. And then from there, the wisest thing is to get with people that have went before or are willing to help out, to kind of walk you through some of the pitfalls and potholes in order to get registered, right? Um, you know,
Well, I was trying to
and be full of questions and not afraid to ask those questions.
So I was trying to talk about the scale though. So with 2,500 media and something like, I'm gonna just say 30,000 tens of thousands of attendees, we're not even a chunk of them, and that's 2,500 people they got to keep track of. So they just have deadlines. They have lines in the sand where they say, here's when we're opening the gates and here's when we're closing the gates, just because they only have so many people on staff to be able to deal with this whole thing. And computers are great, but in reality, they got to print stuff and send stuff and then whatever. So we're really looking at the very end, if it isn't already over. We're going into Christmas, then it'll be New Year's, and then it'll come out of all that, and it'll literally be them setting up the show. So they, you know, they turn off the what do you call, like the I would, what do they call it, the admission window or something. So it's not like a decision that they made against anyone or anything. It's just the way that it is every single year. They usually start
Right.
registration around October, and then it ends like December-ish. And I'm not sure when exactly, because honestly, we have had people come through in October and say, hey, I'd like to go.
Oh yeah.
But it was more like, hey, I want to go and help you on your existing crew that's been going for 10 years. And it's easy for us to go, hey, we're adding a third person, rather than, hey, I'm new and I'm going to qualify myself and all this other work that you have to go through. When they have to qualify someone, they go through and do a bunch of stuff to make sure that you're actually media. They don't open up a show that's an industry show to just anybody who decides to walk in. I think Clover just mentioned there's some people who just literally be in the way and not doing anything, not really adding to nothing and just literally taking up space there, getting in
Right.
the way. And then other
So-
people would be working against the whole thing. If they just open it up to everybody, they've only had maybe 3 instances of this, but like international media will come in and they'll be like, look at how, they'll take something completely wrong, like a shoot, no shoot target that you would use in a discriminatory exercise, or like some sort of a drill where you're going to have people, you have to discriminate between what you're going to shoot and what you're not going to shoot. So you might have an innocent person in a target and a bad guy in a target. And if they look at just the innocent targets, they might portray that as, here's a show where they're shooting innocent people, right? And it's just either intentional or unintentional incorrect coverage is what they're attempting to avoid. And in the past, that was done more intentionally than anything else. But now when you have anybody who wants to can set up content and create content, which is fine, they have to do something to discriminate, is this someone who's actually on our side, as far as like rights and awareness and stuff, or is this somebody coming in and make trouble or cause chaos and stuff? And I don't think they're trying to be what's the word, like a firewall, as much as just trying to be a good host. They're just trying not, people are paying good money and spending a bunch of time and effort to be here. They don't want to accidentally let somebody in who's just going to cause a nuisance or just generally clog the works. So it's not that they're super bureaucracy, but it is a giant show, and it's just a factor of the scale that there's a procedure. And then Clover was saying that if you're going to go, there's ways to learn from others who have been there before, and that's what we're trying to do. But
Yeah.
it's not
Well, there's
exactly
a
difficult
it's-
as much as there's just some tips and tricks.
well, NSSF is the governing body or whatever you want to call it or whatever of the industry. Basically, I don't want to say governing body. That's the wrong word, but the but it's representative, right? It's the lobbying body or whatever you want to say, right? So being that it's the entire industry, there is definitely a level of professionalism that's and they say that through their requirements for your channel and your demeanor while you're at the show, and there's a whole list of things in the FAQ
And I'll,
that lead to that. Now, real quick, can you still register? Yes, I have just checked that, but
Oh, okay, cool.
you've got until the 16th, which is Friday, is the last day before they start tacking on all of the fees. And somebody out there may know what the fee is. I don't know what the fee is. I think it's a couple
Hundreds of
$100
dollars.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's hundreds of bucks.
yeah,
So
that's too
you-
late. That's
if you
too late
follow-
on my end.
If you qualify as media, you go to SHOT Show for free. If you go
Right.
as an attendee, you pay. It was like $250, and that was a discounted one years ago. So it's probably more like 300 or plus now to
Right.
attend.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow.
that's how
Jesus.
they pay for the fifth largest convention in Vegas to happen. By paying people, charging people at the door. So there's that reason that they would, wanted to make sure somebody is media, but they're really they're not trying to be too much of jerks. They're just trying to, at least I haven't ever seen them be punitive. They're just trying to stop the weird stuff. And they still have some weird stuff go through. So y'all don't even remember this, but in 8 is when 7 or 8 is when video started with Milsurp Monkey and the two others. And then we got in on the game in 9. And then by 10, everybody, well, not everybody, but the 4 of us had accomplished video, and we made it a thing. So then in 11 and going forward, a bunch of YouTubers happened, and they started to show up. So by 12, right, it's already been at Sands for a couple of years, and YouTubers show up and they think that SHOT Show is at Sands. Like, they don't know, and they're walking around and they're just figuring it out, and they start doing some weird stuff. So YouTubers did some weird stuff the first couple of years. Luckily, I don't go as YouTube, I go as other things. And it was a bunch of what's the word, like getting rid of media that were not supposed to be there. That happened. And then a couple years on from that, there was an instance with somebody who decided that somebody didn't treat them well, so they decided to do some sort of a weird thing with their YouTube channel and just be weird to the vendor, and the vendor's paying that probably $20,000 for the space to be there, and the YouTuber's there for free. The YouTuber got offended because the other person didn't spend enough time with them and was weird, and the YouTuber got escorted out. I mean, $20,000 to be there doing business versus I'm here and I got privilege, or I've got, everybody should be catering to me and I'm not even paying my entrance fee. So
That's a great point.
that's happened. I'm picking specific instances, but that's probably why they're kind of gun shy, using the pun.
Yeah, sounds about right.
That's a
that
great
being said,
point.
2,500 every year, and I have to struggle to think of a few instances over years, right? And some of those were like 14.
Well, most people understand it. They get the fact that that's the industry, and that regardless of who you are, you're not walking into that booth to spend thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars with that company. You definitely need to slow your roll, make sure that you've got time, make sure that they're not in the middle of a big deal or anything like that's going on. I mean, for them, that comes first. So that all has to do with respecting those businesses and respecting the industry, and then respecting that boundary between businesses and media.
Wow, something about how you just said that, I really like that, respecting the industry. It makes me feel like we should have done a show on what the perfect SHOT Show would be, like the perfect SHOT Show. Like what the best media day would be, what the best first day, maybe we could still do that, but anyway.
I don't even have a good high quality camera to even do media and go to SHOT Show.
You don't
So I
need one.
was,
If you're a podcaster, you wouldn't need a camera, period. If you wrote stuff for a blog, you wouldn't even need us audio recording. So it depends on what you're going to do and what you feel like helping or how you want to contribute.
I mean, like for me, I would like to show content just for people to see on YouTube. There's people on YouTube that have not been to SHOT Show or never even heard of SHOT Show. I would like to, make content and just show people what they want to see instead of just, using my phone. That's just my preference. When when I was doing research on, other cameras, I'm like, okay, what's a good high quality camera, for media besides using your phone? Or some people do use their phone, which
So
is
let's talk
totally
about that. SHOT Show isn't the place for that. The best quality photographs are done with good cameras. I mean, obviously, right? Usually a good camera is at least the size of a shoebox or something. Like it's got some size to it. And that means it's going to need some batteries and it's going to need some light. The camera is just what, takes the image. But to set the image up, you need a background, you need lighting, and then you need some time. And then you probably need to take more than one picture because in reality, they're taking hundreds of pictures and picking it out. Then they're going to need some time to spruce it up in after production or whatever. All of that stuff is not conducive to SHOT Show. So that's one of those things that we're trying to provide is if you go in with the expectation that I'm going to bring my new fancy SLR and I'm going to bring a tripod and all this, yes, it's been done. And yes, those people got a reputation for being a-holes and clogging up booths. And those booths understood that the return on that time investment, $20,000 for the booth, you're there for 4 days, that's $5,000 a day. Let's say that it was more like 8,000 because it's going up. Let's say that's $1,000 an hour.
That's a small booth, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's a tiny booth. I'm talking about booths that people have told me the prices on. Those are the smallest booths downstairs. Upstairs, I can't even imagine. So we're talking $1,000 a day, no, $1,000 an hour ish for them to just be in that building. $1,000 an hour, and that's per tiny booth. So if they've
not
got
counting employees,
$4,000 an hour. Oh yeah, that's employees on top of that. Yeah,
not employee salary, employee time, employee traveling, lodging, food.
And then there's people that'll walk in and go, "Oh, I'm doing video here. Can we please keep the booth empty?" Okay, yeah, give me $1,000 and I'll keep it empty for you for like 15 minutes. But no, you're not going to keep potential customers away from me. Like how many that thousands? What did he say? Ghost has been dropping links. Thanks for that with some of the stats. But something like, what does it say? I'm looking for the attendees. 60,000 attendees. That's gun shops. That's a couple of manufacturers, and that's 2,000 medias. All the rest of them are gun shops. They're the ones that they're there for, and they want them to be able to see the product.
That's a lot.
So, real quick, Mike, where do you sit? And I don't care about this for any other reason, other than it makes a difference in the conversation. But where do you sit as far as like subscriber wise?
What do you mean?
Like YouTube, where are you at on subscriber count?
I'm at 160. Yeah, 161 subscribers last time I checked.
Wow. Okay. I thought you were larger than that. Wow. Okay. So, so this goes across the board, and any and every creator guru that's out there that makes tons of money preying on people, in my opinion, smaller YouTubers, is going to tell you this, but it's not inaccurate information. Done is better than none. So while you're sitting around going, well, I've spent a week, a month, it's now 2 months trying to figure out the right camera. Now I got to find the right audio. Now I got to find the right lighting equipment. Now I got to try to do this. I got to do that. You could be using your cell phone and cranking out videos. And growing your channel. Done is better than none. Especially until you get, several hundred videos uploaded and on your channel and under your belt. Equipment doesn't really play that big of a role. It's not like it's never been proven that a new creator or a younger creater, whatever you can call it, because I wouldn't call you new. I mean, 100 and something is significant. That takes time to get. But I'm still
pretty much new to the YouTube thing. So
but that's still significant. I mean, there's channels that it takes months and months to get 100 subscribers. It's not a small feat. So
I mean,
anyway,
when I first made it to 100, I was very happy and excited. So
it's definitely tough. So but the thing is, you don't realize that, until you get quite a few videos, up on the channel, 100 minimum, if not 200 or 300. And we're talking about in combination with shorts, short form, long form, all of them put together. But until you get that many, you don't really get a sense of how your audience is building up. You don't really get a sense of what type of content works for your channel. You don't really get a sense of what you enjoy doing, right? And so it's never been proven that you've got creator A that goes out and spends $10,000 on gear before they ever create their channel, right? And they have master production level skills. And then you've got somebody that turns on literally their cell phone, and it's like, okay, the clock starts now. And there's no correlation or no proof anywhere that, that channel that has all that background and has all that experience and has all the expensive equipment is going to honestly do any better. And the reason is it's YouTube, YOU. It has to do with you. It has to do with what type of audience you bring in with your specific style of content. And that's why I say getting that content out there is far more important than the overall quality, camera wise, audio wise, whatever, of the content you're putting out. The quality isn't in what you're talking about. It's in how you're presenting the information, those types of things. So I would say just consider on that and focus on done is better than none.
Well, let's put it into
and run with
guns.
it. Run with it for a little while. Yeah.
Let's put it into guns. If you want Dirty Harry's revolver and you want to be able to shoot well, right? Like you want to do those two things. I want to shoot well and I want to get Dirty Harry's revolver. You could go buy Dirty Harry's revolver for however many thousands of dollars that's going to cost and learn how to shoot on a giant 357 revolver, which is possible. Some people do it, I suppose. But in reality, you probably want to start with something that's more budget, more interesting. You're going to figure out, oh, I want a concealed carry. Well, then that 357 wouldn't have done what I wanted. Oh, I want to shoot in competition. Well, that 357 wouldn't have done what I wanted. I want to collect guns as an investment. Oh, that 357 is perfect. It's definitely going to work for me. Like, oh, I want to go do something else, like hunting. Hey, it could work, but I'm going to lose the value on it. So just like anything, jumping in at the number one thing you've been looking for is almost always not going to work, right? You almost always get interested in something to something that's unique and expensive to where you probably don't want in the long run. So I think I'm just adding to what Clover's saying is do, and then once you've done for a while, you figure out, oh, you know what? For just that example, like, oh, bringing all this fancy camera stuff was useless because everybody was really kind of against the idea of me taking a bunch of time and effort away, except for like 2 booths. But you might find, hey, you know what? Everybody hated it except for those 2 booths, and that made my whole show. One of them paid for my trip, and the other one paid for my entire next year of doing stuff. And that can happen. So it's not going to happen every time, obviously, but it can happen. And so I don't want to discourage anybody from doing whatever they want. Just realistically, just think about it. Oh, I want that car. Well, in reality, that's not the car you really probably should have got or would have been best for, but that's the car you wanted. And some people are going to make do. I had a car that I liked for a long time, and then I found practical cars, and I appreciate the practical or whatever. Anyway, She Fires is back. You had a different question.
Nice.
Hopefully we address that one from Chicago Mike, but if
that's cool. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. We've got She Fires had asked this one. Is this the one, or do you have a different one?
That is another one, but yes, I think Ghost did answer that as well, though.
We'll hit it live because we didn't really talk about it live while you were gone. So, what was the second question that before you left?
So my goal is when I meet up and go about the floors is to try to see, and I've got some thoughts in my head, who I want to potentially approach for either a product that I can test and have, reviewed on my channel, or an opportunity to go to their facility for a tour. And so my question is, how do we approach companies with special requests?
That's a good one.
And can I?
Yes, it's super easy. I'll let Clover answer, and then I'll give you all the tips.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience. It can be hectic. I would answer that by saying, the first step for me is relationship. It's making sure that I make contact with that initial person. I've got some type of an elevator speech as it pertains to who I am. That sort of thing. And then pretty quickly devolving into the product and what interests me about the product and what, oh, just looking at it, man, that looks really cool. This, how, and ask some questions to them, right? And so that does a few things. Number one, it shows them that you're not just there to walk in and go, hey, I'm CloverTac. What are you going to give me? You know, it's, I am interested in the product, and I want to, I've got interest in the company, interest in the product first and foremost,
Mhm.
and that I'm there in a professional manner, and I want it to be whatever you want to call it, a symbiotic relationship, right?
Mhm.
And all this is done in a matter of minutes. Don't get me wrong; it's not like you're spending 30 minutes in a booth, so you'll eventually get it down. You got to break the ice first. I would just walk into a couple of random booths almost, if nothing else. The first, because I tend to do that. I'm like, that's moderately interesting. I don't know that it fits my channel. And a lot of times I'll walk in there just to get a primer for the day or something. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Right.
so it's not really anybody that's on my list. Now, sometimes you're surprised, and that ends up being a worthwhile relationship that comes out of that. It does happen. It's crazy. But walk in, that introduction, show that you're genuinely interested in the product, have an answer for how it fits with your goals, your channel, what you're doing.
Mhm.
Have an answer for, because you want to be ready if they start asking you questions, but have an answer to, don't speak to your numbers, or anything like that. Speak in terms of the demographic of the people that you're trying to reach, who you think your viewers are, why you think your viewers would be interested in an item, right? And then go from there. Either hey, let's follow up. Do you offer any T&E stuff? And don't necessarily be in a big hurry to get a yes, sign a contract, do all that right then and there.
Mhm.
Um, I try to keep it fairly cash, right? But it's perfectly fine to ask about, once you've kind of broken the ice a little bit, right? It's perfectly fine to say, hey, do you guys, do you work with creators? Do you offer any opportunity to, get the product out in front of, my audience and this, that, and the other? I wouldn't mention the word free product. I wouldn't mention, anything of that. I don't like that approach.
Right.
So just be careful of sending me product and that sort of thing. You want to work with the product, right? And that again, that reaffirms that I'm here. I respect you as a business, and I want to do my part as media. I don't want just some free stuff in the mail. I'm looking to actually, present this stuff to my audience and sell it. And then the factory tour stuff, facility tour in the same way. Um, don't be discouraged. I will say this, tack on this before I hand it back over to gWebs. Don't be discouraged by no, first of all.
Mhm.
And that's one reason I like to delay it a little bit, is because they're getting bombarded with a lot of this stuff. And so usually if you can delay it to follow up communication later on in a few weeks, um, you may be less apt to get a no, because they haven't had near the amount of people follow up that they had approach them in a booth and just wanted them to send them crap, right? But also don't be discouraged the no on the product end, but also don't be discouraged on a no on the facility end, um, because they have certain trade secrets and there's things. I've been offered tours before when I've talked about that. That's like, okay, yeah, you can come in and look around, but we don't want you taking any pictures or doing any video, right? All the way down to gWebs, I think's had this experience where like they didn't want anybody in there. So that companies, they do have their reasons for that, whatever they might be. And again, it gets back into the respect. So
ITAR,
just don't be,
international stuff, they can't take pictures.
yeah,
International
yeah,
goods or things that other countries
right,
can't know about, they can't take pictures. So that can be frustrating because a lot of stuff we do can't
right.
be seen by other countries, and it's not their fault. They just
hmm
don't want a picture out there,
But
and they might have
don't,
been burned by some idiot in the past.
and there's a bigger thing when I say don't be afraid of the word no. Don't be allergic to the word no. More importantly, if you run into a booth and you get somebody that's got a seemingly bad attitude, or you get somebody that's seemingly dismissive of you, don't let that get you down. There are tons and tons and tons of other booths in that SHOT Show, and I can guarantee you will find good people that understand the value you bring to the table as you articulate it, and that will end up wanting to work with you. So if you run into those people, which would, all the attendees, all of the booths, all of the people walking around, it's just a matter of the odds that you're going to run into some of those people you're not going to mesh with well for whatever reason, or they've had a bad day or a bad night before, or whatever the case may be. Don't let that affect the rest of your show. Like, walk out of that, it's done, it's over with. That's not going to happen. Wasted my time there. Moving on. And just have that attitude that I'm gonna go get the next one. Not a big deal.
Certainly. Nope, that's my approach. Usually positive anyway about that kind of stuff. Just happy to be there. And I think it's going to be the elevator pitch. Go ahead. Sorry.
I got my answer. It's different.
Please.
So your channel is doing good. I can tell you probably want to be around for a bit. So in reality, you've got two different questions there. Doing tours and having something like you're not going to be able to take it home from SHOT for one. They're going to have to send it to you more than likely, unless it's a little doodad. So big picture for your channel, think about how you want your channel to go. Best possible case scenario, everybody you talk to is like, heck yeah, let's do it. Is that building the channel you want? Are you getting random things from here and there and you got an eclectic looking channel, or are you setting everything up so that it's going to look nice, right? Is your goal to attract this person or that person, or is it to educate this person or that person? Like, what's the big goals of your channel? Now, once you've got resources, we've got an attendee list, so you can go through there like a menu. I'm building my channel and I need construction. I need 2x4s and plywood, except you're building a channel and you need participants and you need collaborators. So who am I bringing onto my team? Who doesn't know that they need me on their team yet, right? You're looking at it like that. I would recommend not looking at it like, I wish I had a fill in the blank. And how can I get a fill in the blank quickly?
Agree. Yeah.
So you're building your channel and you're deciding who you want as teammates. And now you're going to do some research. Hopefully you've already talked to these people, but guess what? You're allowed to talk to them anytime you want. So you can go, I'm going to be going to SHOT Show and I'm from Florida and blah, 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 right? So elevator speeches are for people that they've never met before. Meet them before. So meet them before, right? Get in contact with them. I'm going to be at SHOT Show. It'll be my first time. So that I'm going to let you run with that.
That's a good idea, actually.
You go to SHOT Show and your time is not just there, and it's not just an hourglass. It's a grid. It's a chart of most value. So some people, I've gone there, and this is a strategy some people do. I am going to be the first person to get a video of XYZ. It's either going to be the newest thing or the fanciest thing or the new version of a thing or the backwards thing or the upside down thing, different grip angle, red dot, whatever. I'm going to go be the first person to get a video of that. So what is that company thinking? There's going to be 16 people running at us before the doors open. As soon as the doors open, they're all going to want an interview. We're going to get our 3 best people out there. Is that accomplishable? I don't know. You can go down the list and go most popular thing, 3rd most popular thing, 16th most popular thing that's most interesting in some portion of the industry, something that's most interesting to just a few people, right? You can dial it in that way. Another option is to think of that time that you have at SHOT Show being valuable because of where it is. So that first moments you're in SHOT Show, you walk up to your most valuable player and you say, I'm here for you. And I care about you, and we've already talked, right? You're not doing that elevator speech. Instead, you're introducing yourself. You're giving them your contact. I'm going to be here all week. When's the best time for us to talk? I'd really like to talk to somebody on Thursday when you're not tired yet, but you've been completely well rehearsed on what's going on. I can catch you at your most comfortable. It'll look like the most relaxed version of your speech. Can we talk on the best time of the day after lunch on Thursday, or is there a better time? So you want that sweet spot for you. And you want to go contact them on the first thing. If you're walking up to them on Friday, hey, you're my favorite place ever on Friday afternoon, right? Or you're my most favorite thing after every other thing I already did. Or so I'm saying, like, prioritize how you're going to talk to these folks. Research them and decide who it is you want to even talk to. Because the newest thing might be the XYZ, but what you want to do with your channel is 1, 2, 3 over here, like totally something different. So you've got this time, you've got all the time in the world. My other thing is going to be follow-up, and I can 100%. I've lived this, and I've seen so many people. And we were talking about cameras a little bit where you were gone. Mike had said something about waiting to get a good camera to go, which I can understand completely. You want to get decent equipment. I try to get decent equipment when I'm there too. However, you bring your decent equipment, and you get all these pictures, and the pictures are 6 months too late, or the pictures are fuzzy, or something's wrong with the pictures and you can't deliver. Now, did that camera really help you, or did it just embarrass you in front of a bunch of people? So, there's that you can get a surefire elevator speech. You can figure it all out. You can do research on other things. I was saying research, but I'll address this before I cut myself off here. When you research, I want to go tour XYZ. Most of my tours have been targets of opportunity. Most of them, because we were on the road, literally driving around in a cop car, calling up places and saying, hey, we're driving around doing tours. Can we tour your place? And they would go, that sounds weird. No. Or they'd say, that sounds awesome. Heck yeah, join us. Right. And it was just a target of opportunity type of thing. In 2010, I knew I was going to Salt Lake City for a show. And I said, well, if I'm going to be dragging me and I'm a cameraman to Salt Lake City, and we're going to be doing all this effort anyway, we're definitely going to check every gun shop in town. So we're going to be there for 2 extra days. And if I'm going to be there for that 3-day window, who can I talk to? And I called Silencer Co. I called North American Arms. I called a couple other places, and North American Arms and Silencer Co. both, were super nice and gave us tours of their place. Got to meet them and hang out with them. So you can decide, you live in an area, I want to go visit the places in my area. And, SHOT Show is a way to say, I'm in the industry. See us, we're in Florida together and we're talking to each other in Nevada. That's how into the industry I am. When we get back home, can I tour your place? That's a lot different than walking in and saying, you don't know me, but can I tour your place?
Yeah.
Right.
So what do you want to build your channel? Do you want these tours to coincide with a business trip you're going to be on in February? Right? Or is it like, hey, there's gun rights policy conferences coming up. We don't know when. So I'm just trying to plug them, even though I don't know when they're going to be because they haven't given us a date of when their conference is going to be. But, in XYZ city. And I'm going to be there for that because I'm industry. Can we arrange that I can come by and get a tour of your place, or maybe you sponsor me on that trip? Maybe that's a little bit too much up front, but you get to that. So research what's possible. If you find a place, like we got into Barrett one time and they were like, what are you doing here? Like, people don't get to come to tour Barrett, that, like, how did you get in the door and why do I have to tour you around was the questions we got, right? Like, we weren't allowed to take pictures. I'm allowed to talk about the fact that I was there, but I literally don't have one picture. It would have been illegal. Like, I don't know if it's illegal, but they would have certainly been pissed if, they'd probably persecuted us for posting a picture of the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what Clover is talking about. So there's times you can find out that places aren't accessible. And what's the point of going there? To say you've been there? But you find out a couple of places that are accessible and you want to get with them. Again, hey, I'm going to be going to SHOT Show, blah, blah, blah. Can we talk about your shop before I get there? Or like, can you help me get ready for range day by coming out and recording at the thing? Like, so many ways you've still got a month. So figure out where it is that you want to go and research. And if we're talking about gear, I hate to act, it sounds like such a scam to talk about the gear. There is T&E, testing and evaluation. Companies that are interested in what people think about their product and aren't just putting out stuff that looks like some other popular product usually want to get feedback. And they definitely want feedback from people that are able to offer, to express themselves well with feedback. And that's typically people that review for a living. So it's not unusual to go there and get T&E equipment or at least a range for it. So if you're looking at it in that way, again, think about your channel. Like if you go in there and the low hanging targets are all you're going to go for, you're going to have a channel full of the stuff near the register. If you want to have a channel full of stuff in this aisle or that aisle, then go address those people and don't just go with whatever's able. Now, on your first trip, you might want to go with, the stuff that's by the register, keychains and flashlights and stuff that, oh, you want to review it? Here, take one. There's stuff that you can definitely do that with at SHOT Show, and that can sometimes get you some boosts and stuff. But there's a danger of like, oh, this stuff is low hanging and I can just walk around gathering, and then you end up spending the whole show gathering little stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not building, you're gathering little trinkets, you're gathering obligation, you're throwing away your time, you're throwing away your viewers' attention span on trinkets and things. You wanted to build the fancy aisle, the aisle with this in it or that in it, and instead you swamped them with keychain dollar store stuff, and now they're like, oh, I thought this was a different channel, and they never come back again. So you helped yourself a little bit, but you hurt yourself and you don't even know it. So then let's talk about follow-up. You figured out what you want and where you want to go and who you want to work with. And I was talking about this with Mike too. You get that camera and you spend all that money on it, and then it ends up that it doesn't pay off, right? So if you get a bunch of stuff and then you bring it all home and it's great, they're not, unless they're crazy, and hopefully the people that are setting up at SHOT Show are listening to these shows too, and Clover and I will talk to you about that end of it, or from the other side of the table. But if you're
Yeah.
there, you know that you're spending what Snob mentioned earlier. I think I still have it on the screen. He was told that a company spent $100,000 getting to SHOT Show, and that's not even all their expenses, and they tried to do it on the cheap. So it's definitely a significant cost. The part of that is they understand that they're going to be giving product, and they're one of the reasons they're doing it is because they want to get in front of that 2,500 media as efficiently as possible. So it's not like it's outside the realm, but they're going to give out, I don't know, whatever the thing is. If it's a $10 item with a 40% markup, they're going to be giving out a lot of them compared to a $200 item with a 10% markup, something that costs them $270 to sell for $300, some kind of a loss situation. Understand how business is done. And if somebody hits the market with something that they're only going to make money in their 5th year, and you're asking them for a free thing, how many of those free things are they really giving out? Where do you stand on that? Are you going to be able to return on that? Now, you can be the smallest channel with a unique audience and return tenfold over some useless audience of useless people. And that's what they're going to be looking for. So when you get with people and you get stuff, you got to follow up on it. And if you don't follow up on it, you're killing yourself in like 6 different ways. You're killing the industry because that's someone has less faith in what's going on in the whole system. You're killing your audience, and you're killing your future, and then I guess you're killing your channel. And that's why I don't go around saying, hey, go to SHOT Show and collect a bunch of stuff, because all you're doing, that's like cancer to the industry. That's just going around and ruining it.
Yeah,
because it's like a bunch of greedy kids coming in and grabbing stuff. If it's different, if you got a bunch of like homeless or people that are in need coming in and grabbing stuff, because now they're giving them something that they need. They're going to go get on their feet and get back, and now you've got a better, stronger right. If you just get a bunch of kids get tooth cancer or whatever, tooth decay, that ain't helping nothing. You're just helping some dentists out. So I don't want to trivialize it, but that's sort of if you want to get with people, do some research ahead of time. If you want to get to places, make sure they're accessible, and then get with them now, so that your elevator speeches are on the phone ahead of time and in your emails ahead of time. And if we want to talk off air on specifics of that if you want, but I don't like to give people every answer, because then you're not doing it right. I just want to give you some directions. Get with them ahead of time, so when you're there, you're meeting them for the first time. Figure out when is the best time for you, and then ask them for that time, and then follow up. And remember, this is all part of their reputation and your reputation. They're remembering every little thing, hopefully, because they're spending a bunch of money on it. And, you don't want to assume they're going to forget the little stuff, and you want to assume that they're going to notice all the little, or they can't assume that they're going to notice all your little stuff. So there's a lot to it. And I think Clover kind of mentioned it, but don't be offended. Don't be concerned that they're going to be getting approached by a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and people that have been doing it for years, and people with big numbers that they hide behind, grab stuff from.
And that's what I'm afraid of, gWebs. When you were mentioning about having a high quality camera, I'm like, okay, I spent this much, on this beautiful high quality camera. Then I'm like, oh, I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to record, recording certain things. I'm like, okay, like on my own channel, I'm reviewing the guns that I like and that I have. I'm like, okay, is that something that people want to see? Do they just want to see guns, or do they just want to see everything, like everything inside of the SHOT Show? Not just guns, or if they want to see like some patches or different companies' products and everything. Me having this big old beautiful high quality camera, and then I don't know how to use it, and then that's really what I'm afraid of. I'm like, okay, so that's something I got to think about.
Well, the beautiful thing with you, in a way, She Fires is elevated a little bit. She Fires is going to have, understandably, a little more handle on her demographic, and everything with her viewership than you are, just simply because of amount of content,
Absolutely.
subs, time on the platform, all those things matter, right? And so, but there's some freedom, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Not that the subs you're at is not, you shouldn't cherish the subs you got, but there's some freedom with being smaller, is what I'm saying, because you're allowed to experiment. We should always, as gun tubers, experiment with things, right? Should we just shotgun approach, blast things all over the place? No. But, if you're mostly into, reviewing handguns, doesn't hurt to throw a bag in there or some iPro or, like you were talking about, patches, something, right? Just to test the water, because you don't know how your audience, your demographic, your people are going to necessarily react to that. And you may get good reception. And if you do, you're like, okay, I can add a little more of this type of content, as time goes on. And then you experiment with something else and you experiment with something else. And then you start to get a better understanding of your demographic, right? You can go into a SHOT Show thinking, okay, I'm not just limited. My audience demographic is not just, whatever it might be, age, race, creed, sexual orientation. Those demographics all, play a little bit of a role, but the demographics into what type of content that they're looking for or whatever, right? And so you can go into a SHOT Show, and now it's not just handguns. You're like, oh, well, I can go check out the companies that make this and the companies that make that. And it kind of broadens that horizon. And then also, while you're in SHOT Show, again, there's the experimental. There's the, I wonder what my audience would think about this, right? And then
Right.
you have that conversation with that company that, hey, this is roughly the demographic. I have that with the whole FUD and hunting and, range toy type thing rather than tactical. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. And I know you're like appealing to tactical and operators, but have you thought about the value for the pig hunting in this or something? It'd be interesting to see, right? And sometimes you can spark a relationship that way. To follow up on what gWebs said, I wrote 4 things down here real quick. With She-Fires, first of all, with the tours, even if you can't film it and take pictures, tours have value, in my opinion, because it gives you legitimate experience with seeing that operation and how it works, which will give you better um, faith, I guess, in the company or whatever with the products. If it's a company you like and you see their operation and it's top notch, great equipment, other things, you could talk about that sort of thing. You're not showing pictures of this, but you can say, hey, this company got the, as you're reviewing that product from the company, you can go, hey, I've been on a factory tour and these guys have the most modern machinery you've ever seen. And you can say that with confidence, right? You're not just repeating some talking points that you've heard, right? And that will show on video or on podcasts and stuff when you're talking about it. Also, if you ever do interview them later on, things may come up from that tour, right? That you can mention. Again, you're not showing video of the process or pictures of the process or anything like that, but it can give certain little talking points that are interesting. The second was when you're talking about the first, being the first. gWebs was talking about that. That will come with relationships and things that you build with companies. You will eventually build relationships. That, don't get me wrong, going in that as a first time, SHOT Show goer or whatever, and wanting to be the first one to go get a video of this or video of that. I'm not going to discount that as being cool in the mind of that creator. I get it. But if you would focus on the channel building aspect of it, the audience and the demographic building and the relationships aspect of it, eventually the channels are going to come around and they're going to give you the opportunity to announce the release of the new product, to work with new things that haven't even hit the market yet for sale. That's going to come with the talking about the follow-up, right? Patience and persistence is one of the biggest things. We've talked about it before, but there's turnover in the industry. The person you talk to lost their job. It's frustrating because now you got to figure out who took it over and all this other stuff. They have other shows and other things that they've got to go, they do, and they're at. So getting back to you promptly a lot of time is a problem. Imagine the amount of emails they get swamped with and they have to go through those. So sometimes it may be better to call or text, and you kind of got to navigate that and figure it out. But also part of the follow-up that a lot of people fall flat on, and I think that it hurts them long term with companies, is showing their work. So anytime I throw out some content, and I don't necessarily upload a video and immediately turn around and send an email to my contact or whatever, right? But at least a few days or a week later or something, I'll send an email and go, hey, just touching base, dropped a video, about so and so. Just wanted to let you know, right? You can also tag the company. That's all of that is a no brainer. And then one of the things that I've done that companies seem to really like, and it's a part of my media kit, and we can kind of talk about media packets and stuff like that. I don't know that this is necessarily the show, but
No, let's do a whole chat on that. I didn't even think of that.
There is a link that I provide in my media kit. Only companies get it. It's not available to the general public, and it is a page built in my website where companies, guests I've had on the podcast, that sort of thing, can go in and leave feedback on their experience from a professional standpoint in working with me. They can go in and write a little blurb, right? And so what this does is companies, when I send them my media packet, I'm not name dropping any particular companies. I'm not going in or whatever, giving my elevator speech and then going, oh, I've worked with this company and I've worked with that company. But it's something that's there. It's subtle. And it's like, hey, if you're, I understand the reservations that some companies have with, just with working with gun tubers. I get it with influencers or whatever you want to. I mean, who knows what you even call us nowadays. And this is a part of the media packet where you can get some honest feedback on with people I've worked with in the past to kind of get an idea of what to expect if we enter into that. And Chris made it in. So what's up, Chris?
Hey,
Not
Chris.
much. How are you?
Good to see you.
What's going on, Chris?
Not much. Well, at least I guess my audio is working. You guys can hear me, so
Oh
Yep,
yeah, you're
loud
good,
and clear, buddy.
good deal.
So we want to let you got any questions, Chris, since you jumped in here. I know you were busy working or whatever. Is there anything we can try to cover for you? Anything you've been pondering?
No, I've kind of done a little bit of legwork already. I've got a hold of a lot of the companies that have already, kind of sponsored the channel and have been with me from the get-go. And so I've got some interviews set up with the sponsors that I already have. And it's my first time, so I can sit here all day, I guess, and talk about what I think I'm going to do when I get there. But right now, I guess I'm just going to kind of hit the ground running like I did when I got to Wanamaker and, see how it goes. And at least I got a good support group around me if I, got questions and I need help with something. So,
yep.
Right on. Well, I'm going to say let's take that because that's a whole different angle of going. And you brought up a couple of points there, having pre-scheduled situation, and then I can't think of the second one, but I wanted to take a second and just give She-Fires a chance to actually respond because you had asked the question, Clover answered, then I interrupted and answered for a long time. So I don't know if I
court She-Fires, yeah.
But first of all, if there's any follow-ups or anything we can add to those, and then if we hit them, and then I think you had that other one in the thing, we'll hit that one too.
No, what Chris, I'm just to piggyback even what Chris was talking about, like what I learned from what you both shared was to do some homework on the companies and identify specifically the products that I'm interested in so that when I have that conversation in person, if they ask me any probing questions, I will be armed with the information. And there are a couple companies that I can email in advance now. So I'm going to take that on, Chris, stealing that from you. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit. I think that's a great idea. At least maybe they'll remember the names. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of remember. I don't know if the same company, the same person that gets the emails, it's the same that's going to be there, but I don't think it hurts. So I've learned a lot and I've got homework, and the guys, the folks have been answering my questions in the chat. Ghost has been very helpful.
Right on. And
appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for jumping in because otherwise it's just me and Clover bloviating. I think you said bloviating, how the word goes.
And we're good at that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's good to have somebody actually help us chop it up. Milsurp says earlier, I went last year and it was my first last year. So excited to see how this year differs from last year. Obviously, y'all are in the same situation that you're going to see it for the first time. Now, Milsurp doesn't know it, but he went in a very unique year. Yep. So he's definitely going to see a change. And it was a peak, I guess. I don't know what to call it. Like it was a curve. It was a turn. And it physically because of the new building, dynamically because of the situation in the world and everything, and then the industry and politics and everything just kind of lined up to such a way where people drew line. We see things like giant companies deciding not to participate. Like I think SIG even said, "No, we're not going. We don't need SHOT Show anymore." So you've got that kind of pettiness. People complain about clicks. Industry at the top level has clicks. So we're dealing with a change in SHOT Show. It's not for the better or worse. That's why I don't want to say it's a peak and it's going down, or imply that it's it's just a left turn or a right turn. But it's definitely a change, and it'll so you'll definitely see a change. And everyone who's going for the first year, keep that in mind. You're seeing a SHOT Show in flux, an industry in flux, and a community. So we have the shooting industry, the technical guns and materials and infrastructures and supply chains and gun shops, FFLs, and the things that deal with all the compliance with industry regulations, the people that deal with the scarcities and fluctuations in materials and material costs and material availabilities, and then obviously all the social pressures and stuff, and then the end users, the shooters themselves, the gun users. We've changed. We continue to change. Really what happens is the world changes and Americans own guns. And it's just always been that way. It's just that now people have enough cameras to see that and understand it. And then there's people that can, that are championing the exploration of that. But, everything's changing. So everybody that's going to SHOT Show, welcome to 2023. It's a different SHOT Show that's ever been. So that's a great point. And, I think it's one of the reasons we're doing this show, is because as many people can be involved in the big picture, the more fun it's going to be for everybody, because we're not living in boring times right now.
It's going to be interesting to put together an after action after 23, potentially with some people that's first year was 22. I think that could be an interesting conversation for sure, because that they experienced for the first time, experiencing the SHOT Show, experienced something that was just wildly different. I mean, I can't even imagine everything that was going on in your mind, G, because me with only going 4 or 5 years, it was crazy in a good way, but crazy.
We didn't even get to talk about some of this. I see giant patterns, right? Like big patterns. Let's talk about like going from film cameras to digital cameras to video cameras to live streaming, like those kind of changes. And the people that I'm going to call them exploiters. And if they get offended, I don't care. If everybody else is just the people that I don't appreciate in the industry and in the community that exploit the easy angles, or that do the easy stuff. And like I was talking about with the kids in the candy shop, if a bunch of kids run in and steal all the candy, there's no good to society. If a bunch of people are in need and you clear out a store to help those people, and then let the store, get back from the community, that's a different situation. And I don't know, maybe it's a bad analogy there, but there's people that just come along, see how to exploit. There's lots of industries out there. Let's just pick for random the beanbag industry, or let's just pick for random, selling cars or something. So people are selling cars and they suck at it. And there's lots of other competition in selling cars, or they're selling beanbags or whatever, and they suck at it. And then they're stealing logos or something, and they get caught and they can't sell their stolen logos anymore. So then they look for another industry, and they go to an industry full of people who have an interest in the foundational traditions and the foundational stuff that makes the Second Amendment, right? What the Second Amendment protects. What it's protecting is the stuff that people are interested in guns are all about, right? So we're over here for a long time on the internet, just minding our business, enjoying each other's stuff and each other's skills, and learning and exploring, and every once in a while bickering, but for the most part, minding our business. And then we started to get infiltrated in about 2011 with all these people who had failed in other internet businesses and looked around on how to exploit other internet, or how to exploit other areas of the community or other areas of industry. And once they found that gun owners were dumb, and it was fairly easy to use the same recipes that you use on gamers on YouTube, on gun YouTube, we saw a change. And now you saw a difference. And what happens is an industry who's like, we're minding our business. We're kind of scared of cameras. Now we're super scared of digital cameras. And now all of a sudden there's video where we're super scared. But it's okay because we've heard of this thing called subscriptions and views. Oh, you've got 1 billion views? Oh, I can't even imagine how much money I'm going to make. And then it takes a couple of years before you figure out that 1 million views doesn't make a sale necessarily. Because if those 1 million views are in a country that they can't export to, then that's a lot of money wasted getting those 1 million views to, right? So you've got a lot of stuff happening, and then you got a repercussion from that. Oh, well, we're never going to talk to anybody on YouTube. And then they figure out, okay, you got people like Clover and Ghost being normal and not exploiting everything. So, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. And I don't even know where I started this whole thing anymore because I started ranting about shot. But this things, I guess I was looking at big picture stuff, and these big picture things last year. How do I say it? Imagine if you're sitting there in a little boat and you're looking at like one of them big, what are those things called? Glaciers, and they fall into the water every once in a while. Imagine some of the wastest of time people that we should have never been catering to were like that snow falling off into the ocean, and hopefully they can never climb back up there anymore, because there's certain things that you can't exploit anymore once there's nothing there for you to exploit. Once the awareness is there, you can't exploit new gun owners. Right. Once they've been around that block before, they're not falling for your business anymore. So what we saw last year was a bunch of fare-thee-wells and a bunch of I'll ride alongs, or I don't know what to call them, but exploiters who didn't show up. And what we're going to have left is like if you sheared a sheep or something, or if you gave a dog a haircut. I don't know how to explain it, but like if you took a burden off of something and you let it run around again, that's what we're going to see. That's what we saw this year at SHOT Show. It's like if you took a bunch of the burden off of it and you let SHOT Show run around again, and it's not a baby, but it's still got muscle and it's running around. And then this next year, it's going to be a bunch of people trying to throw saddles on that thing, and it ain't going to be falling for that no more.
I think one thing that was funny about 22 is all the buzz. I mean, after the first couple of days, there was buzz all over the place. How awesome, SHOT Show was. Oh my God. And some of the people that you're talking about just happened to show up the last day or couple of days or whatever, right? I mean, they hopped a flight and got out there. I thought that was kind of interesting. But, to the larger point, I do know that Sheepfires has been paying attention and involved in kind of the YouTube ecosphere and creator sphere at large, which is a really great thing. I mean, that goes a long way to understanding YouTube, understanding content creation, understanding your craft, but it also goes a long way, I think, and I'll let her speak here from her experience on it, but from mine anyway, with understanding exactly what you're talking about. There's a lot of big YouTube helper gurus that are more or less predatory. They're catering to the lowest common denominator, and they kind of perpetuate this stereotype. You get into those types of chats about, just being a YouTube content creator, and there's so many channels that are absolutely clueless. All they care about is getting those views, or all they care about is getting monetized, or, being the next 1 million subscriber channel. And it's like, they're not focusing on the things that actually matter. So that's a human condition, as you explained. I mean, they're going to move on to off-roading or quilts or whatever it might be to try to make a quick buck or do whatever. But, being in the long haul, I think helps you, because you see those cycles, and it can help you not shift to exploit, but at least anticipate, right? And shift to take advantage. You kind of, I guess, with accordance to what you're doing with your channel and your goals.
When you're there as being valid, whoever it is I'm talking to, right? If you're there going there to be valid, you're an option, you're an opportunity for everybody at SHOT Show who's looking for valid. Because if nobody shows up that's valid, they have to go with the exploiters. There's no other option. Some of them will get conned into it, but some of them just didn't have a choice. It was all that was standing in front of them.
If I can say to that too, thank you, CloverTac. Learning the YouTube way has been really helpful. It is, there's a lot out there, so trying to figure out which is the right path for your channel has been a challenge, but making my way, I think it just comes over time. It slowly starts to, you start to get a little bit of traction and moving slow and intentionally and being in the right spaces that support what you're trying to do. And then on top of that, knowing the 2A way and make sure you stay in your lane so you don't get in trouble. And I know CloverTac has helped me more than once in this area. So it's YouTube, and then it's also 2A at a whole nother level. And it's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's definitely fun.
Your channel.
It's like
your channel's
traffic.
doing great.
Sometimes it's
Sorry.
fun. Sometimes it's a hassle. Sorry, I talked over you, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, gWebs. I was saying, she fires. Hey, your channel's doing great. So,
I appreciate that.
no problem.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy doing it at least to some extent some of the time. And everybody has burnout, and that's why, gWebs jokes, other people joke that have, alternate channels and little side projects and different things, but those are to take a break, sometimes. I mean, it's just like I gotta walk away, I gotta take a break, I gotta, I love the bread and butter, the primary is, the firearms, the 2A, and more importantly, the community and the people within, and the companies and the industry.
All right, well, let me interrupt
but-
and have a contrary to that. You need a second channel. If you're going to SHOT Show, come on, get a second channel. It needs to be travel, food, something lifestyle, whatever, but it needs to be something you're comfortable, able to do, because that's your channel that's going to make money. And everything you learn that's just plain old YouTube strategy, use it on your other channel. Learn your YouTube over there. You're a content creator. That means you got to pay attention. And I'm going to give She-Fires some crap right now. There's 2A and there's guns. So everybody's mushing things up here. And definitions are important just so that when we're talking to each other, we know what we're talking about is all. So one of the ones I've noticed a lot is EDC and CCW. EDC is like your pens and your knives and your wallets and your keys and your watches. And it's all the stuff that's friendly. And that's important because you can have a channel about EDC and that can never touch guns, and that can make money on YouTube, real money. And now when you go to SHOT Show and you're talking to people about watches and keychains and all that dollar store stuff near the register, boom, it's all on a channel that's making money. And those people are going to be there. There's knife people at SHOT Show. They could care less about the guns. They're going to make a lot of money talking about knives at SHOT Show. So have another channel, and that's where you can put all that other stuff. So anyways, getting into the differentiations, right? Like EDC is that stuff. CCW is whatever gun you're carrying around. Now, CCW happens to be the permit in some states, and other states call it a LPC or something else. But CCW is just kind of generally what most of the country, probably because the first states to institute it called it concealed weapons, or concealed carried weapons permits. But for whatever reason, I usually try to think of CCW as the guns, just as a content creator, so that you keep it over on your gun channel, and then EDC over on your other channel. That way, when there's robots and spiders are trying to figure out your channel, you're not screwing with them. You're making it real easy for them. My EDC stuff is safe for making money, and the gun stuff is safe for having fun with guns that's not making money on YouTube, but they need to be separated at the moment on YouTube, not on every platform. But getting back to guns and 2A, yeah, guns, the gun community is giant and it's growing and it's a big thing. The 2A community is a subset of it. It's really tiny. It's still growing, but it's tiny. And it sits around festering, and it doesn't grow anywhere near as fast as it could. And I just like to always bring up there is a difference. 2A would be the stuff that the Second Amendment protects, and that's all the institution, the tradition, the rights, and that kind of stuff. And then the guns, is the guns, everything else. I always make that because I don't consider myself guns so much anymore. I mean, I hang out with guns and stuff, and I know guns, but the guns I like are getting old, and people don't like them anymore. The new stuff I don't pay attention to, so I don't think it'd be correct to call my channel a gun channel anymore as much as the 2A thing. And that's just a here and there. But I was also gonna, what was Clover's point a second ago about that you just made?
I think he said he was going to step back. He had left a message on the.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
Well, we start gonna hit She-Fire's question here, but now what was Clover talking about just a second ago? His point was, well, first I'm going to take a second and talk about G23 as well, as somebody's helping me remember what I was interrupting Clover to contradict him about. G23 is saying that he's got a chat starting at the top of the hour in Oregon, and he is at the hearing for 114, the horrible gun stuff that's happening in Oregon right now. He's there, and he's going to be live streaming, and his will be starting in 30 minutes. I'm not guaranteeing we're going to be done by then. That's what we're shooting for, pun intended. And I do have a link that's going to send everybody over or recommend his show. But here's a link to it. In the meantime, if you want to go give him a thumbs up and get ready to watch the hearings over there, This is G23s, and I'm only dropping this on, well, I guess he's not in here. I'm only dropping it on the one channel.
It's pretty much going to happen in my city as well, because they're trying to do the same thing.
For sure. And in the, just, without getting it into a 2A chat, right? The stuff goes back and forth when you're playing a game. If somebody spikes and then somebody does something, or somebody does something out of the bounds, what's the usual reaction? A big force the other way. So as much tension and stress as everyone's trying to push on everybody for these reactions to the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision, let time play out. It's been very little time. What we're seeing is the pouty children getting upset. And when pouty children get upset, they get scolded. So wait for the scolding. And what you're going to see is a bunch of people saying, "Oh, look, it's scolding time, and we're going to get what's coming. They're going to get what's coming to them, and you're going to the news cycle will never end." But just trying to say, don't get too discouraged, because it's not a done deal, and they're doing stuff that's so extreme that there's going to be consequences to balance it out, and that's going to be the fun part, because there's new people on the scene to be here to experience all this. Clover, what was the point I was interrupting you about that you were making at the end there? And then I made a bunch of extra tangents on CCW and EDC and 2A and guns.
Yeah, I don't even remember. Probably have to do with the people that in, no matter what you alluded to it with the beanbag thing, that there's people that are going to exploit. I think that's where I ended on anyway. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's off road or whatever.
I'll remember at some point. I'll make a video about how I probably with whatever.
But I did want to. We glossed over Sheefire's question out there in the chat, so I did want to.
No, we never even hit it. I'll just go back to it. So yeah, go ahead.
But just to read it for anybody that might be out there, how do you move strategically throughout the floors, making sure you go to the intended booths without getting distracted? And there was I don't know the answers, but I know that there was a lot of replies out there in the chat. And again, thanks. That's one of the awesome things about this format, and the people out there that have been and done and have some experience giving their insight. The first thing that I would say about this, though, Sheefires, is a distraction. There's good distraction and there's bad distraction. And so at every single turn of SHOT Show, there can be a distraction that's a good distraction. So, I wanted to tread really softly on the word distracted, right? Because let's say you're at a booth, you got to get to another booth, but along the way you turn a corner and you see a product and you've never seen that product before, and you think, wow, that really fits again with my demographic, with the channel direction, with what we're doing. You need to be fluid, if you can at all, with time to stop, introduce yourself. It was impromptu, that company was not on your list, whatever the case may be. And it not just for the fact of, can I make a relationship with them? Ultimately, we want to do that. But if that was something that has never really been on your radar, right? A certain product or whatever. And I don't know what example to give, but just some doodad that you're like, oh, that's a everyday carry thing, or that goes great with my particular handgun, the way I carry, or the way I train on the range, or whatever. Not that it's necessarily about that product, but now that has put that product in your mind as a possibility. So as you navigate the rest of the floor on SHOT Show, and there's another competing company with the same product, maybe you're like, whoa, okay, well, I've already gotten interested. I know that product exists now. I see how it could apply. You know what I'm saying? And then so where, you may turn a corner, you may see that it may not really go anywhere. You may get dismissed, but now that's a thing. And so you're kind of going to be looking out the corner of your eye, so to speak, or maybe you even add that product or some of those companies later at night when you're revamping things, revamping your strategy. I think that to get back to the strategy of it, and this is my thing, and again, obviously with the distraction deal, I have fluidity with my strategy, but I will first go through the list of vendors and I will lay out virtually pretty much every possible one that I want to go to their booth, see the products, have a conversation, so forth and so on, right? And I'll lay those out in a booth number order. And once you get to SHOT Show, you'll understand kind of why I do that, because there are aisles and rows, even though they aren't necessarily straight and other things. But um, you can work it pretty quick if you've got 4 or 5 companies, and all of those are within the 700 to 900 booth range. You can work those 4 or 5 pretty freaking quick if you've got them all there and they're all in order, as opposed to them being spread out. So and then from there, I color code, but you could letter code or do some other kind of things, and I narrow it down from there. I narrow it down to companies I've never spoken with before. I narrow it down to, and then even companies I've never spoken to before, companies I have spoken to before, and then companies that I have good relationships with. And then within those 3 categories, I break it down even further, right? Like, am I seeking a sponsorship? Am I just going to look at product? Am I concerned with just getting initial contact because maybe that's fallen apart for whatever reason? And that's kind of how I lay everything out. Things get checked off the list. At the end of every day, usually at night is when I do that. Things get checked off the list. Things get added to the list during the day. Again, getting back to the distractions. Maybe I don't have time, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to come back tomorrow or whatever, right? And talk to you guys. Appreciate the minute you gave me here. I'll be back for sure, right? And then I'll put them on the list and maybe go back when I got a little more time the next day, if that's the case. But yeah, every night that modifies and that changes, and you'll know what I mean. I mean, it's hard to know without experiencing it, if I can speak. But yeah, you got to have that amount of fluidity, and that's why I first started answering this question that way. You got to have some fluidity to be able to accept those very welcome distractions, because SHOT Show, gWebs said it earlier, I think, that SHOT Show is full of opportunity. And a lot of times it hits you and most of the time, I think it's going to hit you when you least expect it.
We chat a lot. We talk a lot. So if anybody wants to talk, specified
Yeah,
section to break in.
There needs to
That's
be
a-
a slap so-and-so upside the head button, I think.
There needs to be like a thumbs or like a hands up, or like a
Right.
let me like, because they used to do that in Hangouts. I think you could put up a thing that would be like, oh, you want to say something, so that because anyway. So feel free. If y'all aren't familiar with our chats, we've been chatting for way too long. I started doing chats in 11, these live things. So I'm super comfortable, and I do not care about the boarding house reach. If you want to just say something, interrupt us and say something.
Hey,
And
that's some really great information that y'all put out there. I mean, I'm glad I came on the panel just to learn, even though if I'm not going. I mean, it doesn't hurt to still learn. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna go this year, but I'm gonna definitely go next year. That way I can give myself a year and more time to just think about it. I'm like, okay, let me get a camera, let me get my YouTube thing straightened out, this, that, and the other. Let me try to adjust. So it's some very good information that y'all put out there. So
yeah,
Well,
right
for
on.
you too.
It's just like if you were going to go into a competition, like, hey, I'd like to shoot this shooting sport. Well, first you got to go get the gun, then you got to learn how to use the gun, then you get
Right.
proficient with it, and then you join the club, and then you start shooting, and then you start getting good or not, right? But yeah, it takes a little progression. So that's
Well, and then it's
actually
being
SHOT
able-
is a good thing for somebody to shoot for, right? Because it's a once a year and it's big. I'll shut up like Clover time.
Well, I'm just saying we've had the conversation on these shows before, but yeah, I mean the first thing when Mike come on, mentioned it, but first thing is making the decision, the solid decision that I'm going, right? Period, in the sentence.
Right.
And then once you do that, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, you talk about your channel, but you got to worry about your time off work. You got to be able to worry about getting money put back. How do I fund it to be able to, get out there and do things? There's a lot of things, and I get it. I mean, technically, could you go? in 23? Technically, at this point, yeah, got till Friday to register. You probably make it happen.
We're going to
You
talk
can
about
probably,
another way here in some
you
of
know,
the questions too.
probably do a lot of different things financially, and maybe you can get off work and this, that, and the other. But you've got a lot more prep time, I guess, if you're
And
talking
is it
about
worth the
24.
investment, depending on
This
how
is
much you're
true.
making at work and how much
Yeah.
it's going to cost, if you're
Right.
going to go in debt to go,
Well,
it's probably not
and
worth
is it?
going unless you're going to catch like a lottery type of winning. But if it's no big deal to go and you can,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Everybody's different.
Well, and
And like
is it worth the investment with your channel where it is now? I think is a valid question to ask too, right?
yeah.
Like, is your channel, structured in a way like, you know, are you serious enough? Do you have direction? Do you have? I mean, I've pretty much known, what direction I wanted to go with my channel at any given time from day one, right?
Mhm.
But unlike most people, or I say day one, I'm certainly before ever with SHOT Show for the first time. But very quickly I got into learning the nuances and everything else of YouTube and a lot of other things to be able to help me figure out those directions and look at my analytics and kind of tell where things were going and that sort of stuff. So it just gives you more time. And I think that, I think there's some validity to that. I think, could you go in 23? Yes. Would it be as good of a return on investment as waiting to 24?
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
I'm going
And
to take, go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead, gWebs.
Well, I never really answered She Fires' question here. So how do you move strategically throughout the floors, making sure you go to the intended booths without getting distracted? So it's a giant show, have realistic expectations. Hopefully everything we're offering here, even though it's semi-chaotic and definitely not structured, and there's a lot of it, is an indication of how SHOT Show is. There's a lot of it. It's not structured. It's chaotic. So have realistic expectations of it. You're going to, let's say on the best possible scenario, the best person who knows what's going on is going to get 5 things accomplished each day, 20 things accomplished at SHOT Show. I mean, I think you'd have to be a robot almost to be able to do 20 things at SHOT Show, and then maybe 25 if you went to Media Day with that same rate. Realistically, though, a regular person, it's maybe more like 2 things a day, 1 thing a day, if you're not trying to go nuts and you don't have to have return on this. Like if you need this trip to pay for itself, that's a different situation than it'd be cool if it pays for itself versus I don't care if it pays for itself. I'm investing in my future, my channel, and my abilities, and my skills, and my relationships. And this is not something that I've got to get return on the investment. I guess.
Well, also, real quickly to interrupt, but how quickly it pays for itself, right?
That's a great point. Yeah. And
Yeah.
So all of that can apply, and all of them are valid. I don't care what anybody tells you. You're allowed to be a capitalist in capitalism. So people that ain't capitalists can't yell at you about being a capitalist or shame you out of being a capitalist. You're allowed to go to SHOT Show and make money. There's people at SHOT Show making millions of dollars, and these people buy their tickets, and then they'll shame somebody who's an individual trying to go and make a deal with a small company. So realistic expectation. So move strategically throughout the floors. My approach would be with the idea that all the stuff Clover said is very specific. Mine is big picture.
That's happening in Harney County.
Oh, snap. Hold on. So I'm muting him, but G23 is going live now with his coverage of the hearing for Measure 114 in that county in Oregon. So thanks again for that. We're dropping a link to that again. So if you want to ditch this, even though it's live, feel free, because that's actual 2A stuff happening. G23 hosts a live format show every weekend. He's not growing as a channel. He's not getting all kinds of funding through his efforts or any kind of giant collaborations or anything. He's just doing it because he's he values his participation in this thing, and I appreciate him very much. So he's over there doing that. That's real life stuff right now. We're going to keep going because we've got everybody here, but sorry, that interrupted me as I was saying about Clover, talking about I was talking about moving around and having realistic expectations. And then I was about to say, since She Fires asked the question, Are you good at going? I don't know if you live in a city or what. Like, are you okay with like directions if somebody says go to the 4th floor on the 3rd building to the left, like, or do you need it like an address and then a GPS to take you there, kind of thing?
Yes, I'm fine with that. I believe.
Okay, so if you're okay with getting yourself oriented in like a business or like in a big situation or like in a parks, I'm trying to think of like city things, and people are like, oh, it's that blue building, and you know how to get yourself back to the blue building. Then I would take that first day, and maybe even range day. Just my advice is get in the door at range day, book one way or the other, and then book the other way. So you get in there and you can go north or south, you can go left or right. Decide, go one way or the other, and then go, and then see how big it is, and then go back, see how big it is. You'll have plenty of time. It'll wear you out, but you'll see the expanse of it. That'll give you an idea of one sliver of how big it's going to be going to SHOT Show. So once you've done that path or something like that, to at least orient yourself. And there's a trick. If you're somebody who is cool, I will give you the trick for media day. You don't have to walk that whole thing, but something to that effect is the same thing I'm going to recommend for SHOT Show. Aside from the advice I offered before, that your time is super valuable and those first moments are more valuable than your last moments at SHOT Show, taking that aside, you are your first to visit and you're trying to get your brain accustomed to what all's going on. So if some people are better at this than others, spatial, figuring stuff out, orientation, that kind of thing. I can look at a map and I don't need to look at it anymore. And I know where I'm at and I know where north is and I'm done. And some people ain't like that and they need to constantly be looking at the map or the app or whatever. And it needs to tell them go left here and they, that kind of thing. So what I would say is plan on taking your first half day at SHOT at least to just orientate, walk around, walk to the corners. And, I don't have to tell everybody how to do this, but essentially do some kind of a pattern to see the whole show. And if you need some more specific advice, if you like this direction, then I can give you some strategies, because it's not going to be, everyone has to do this. I mentioned it taking a turn. We have a new building, and the way that the patterns of that new building have yet to be determined because it's such a new thing. So there is no way to experience SHOT, and all of us, including myself, are having to orient ourselves with the new SHOT each year. So that's a piece. And a lot of people are going to ignore that and let that happen. Or since they don't look for that facet, I don't want to say value, but that's not a thing that they're prioritizing, I guess. That'll come on the 3rd day. And if they're satisfied by the end that they know where everything is, then in those final minutes when they need to run to stuff, they know where to run to. But in the beginning, if you only need to know where one booth is, some people, I can see that strategy. But my answer to that would be, how to learn how to get around is by getting yourself orientated first. And then the rest of the show, you can go up to somebody who knows what's going on and they can say, near the FN booth in the big building. Oh, okay. Or, downstairs next to the food court on the left or on the west. Okay. And then that just takes that out of there or not. And some people, again, I'm talking to chief hires, but everybody who's hearing this has a different ability or interest in prioritizing that. So the way to figure it out is I don't know why they don't do this and they don't listen to us. Paint each wall a different color, for crying out loud. Was it going to kill you to have one color wall or each wall a different color, like the major north, south, east, and west different colors? I mean, what could possibly happen in that building where that is a bad thing? Like, I can't imagine. They just don't paint the walls. So if they painted the walls, it would make it a lot easier to orientate. But you've seen pictures of this place. There's going to be buildings set up inside of this giant room. And you can, just like any city, once you see the tallest building or the 2 tallest buildings or the building that's all orange or something, or where the Glock booth is, everything starts to fall in place. And once it's like the constellations, once you know where Glock is and where Smith & Wesson is, then everything else is to the left or right of that or in front of it or behind it. And then you got a third thing to triangulate and you're done. You got the whole shot. And then you have to do that for each major room. So there's the giant room, there's the law enforcement rooms, and then there's the basement, and then there's the new room and the 2 or 3 adjacent rooms there. So once you've got the basic layout and you got yourself orientated in each room, it's a lot easier to figure it all out. Now, that being said, Ghost jumped in. He's been there before. Smeggy's been there before, even though you're not supposed to be in here. Welcome to both of you. And then Clover's been there before. I don't use the word prioritizing because I don't want to say like value. I don't know what the right word is, but do you guys prioritize figuring out the layout if you were a new person? Would you say that's 1 out of 10, like super, or 10 out of 10? Who cares if he is 2 weeks after SHOT Show? Who cares about that knowledge?
I mean, like the first day and a half, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to get lost. You're going to get frustrated. That's just part of it. You have to realize that's going to happen. The best thing that I do is, like, in the main floor, I'll find a booth. Like if there's an entrance or an exit that I typically go out of, I'll try to find a booth that's a big one, like a Smith & Wesson or Glock or something that's by that exit, and say, okay, all I got to do is look up in the rafters for the Smith & Wesson banners. And if I can get there, then I know where I am. So I kind of use like different parts of the rooms and find a booth. Once I get there, I kind of know where I'm going. That's kind of what I do.
I'll say the strategy that I used was a lot more just bounce off the walls. So as much as you guys are giving out good advice, I went the opposite direction and I just kind of wandered. I also didn't have specific things I had to go see. So that's kind of a strategy too for the first day, is just bounce around and see what happens. That might not be the best advice, but that's what I ended up doing. Because like I said, I didn't have specific goals in mind.
All right, so I'm going to move on because we've been 2 hours and She Fires jumped away for a minute here. So Milsurp said, so both my father and I have been before and 2 that haven't been before. So I guess he's saying 4 people are going. I missed that one. And so him and his dad have been there before, and then 2 other folks that have not been. Let's see. Plus he's been going to the other NRA conventions for years. There are a lot of, I don't know if this is the same. No, this is way later. So as far as that one goes, there's kind of a couple of points in there. Now, okay, Ghost jumped out. I'm scolding him in the back because I don't think this is, I think I wanted to do a chat with everybody who's been there before separately, because we're going to talk about things that are not, that's just saying stuff in front of new people. I wanted to do this one for new people. Smeg's only been there once. So if you want to stick around, I guess, like I say, the room can hold 12, but just, I don't want to make it so much like fire hose that nobody can, what do you call it, remember anything, or that it just becomes, you know, an orchestra instead of a coaching. But I also don't need to mansplain. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'll shut up and I'll invite everybody back in. The link is out there. Because we are going to do one with everybody, and that I figure will be more of a, like, let's just talk about our experiences type of thing. Anyhow, so Milsurp is saying about how his dad and I have been before. Now, Clover, you talked about bringing Banshee for his first time before, and then you talked about this time it's going to be, Banshee was before. He's been there before. This time it'll be Mike's or Budget's first time. And you're taking him. No, sorry, not you. Different Mike.
Okay.
Ohio, I think. And as far as, see, the thing is with going with people, it's interesting to talk about, but unless you've got somebody that you've got a relationship or you're interested enough in sharing a house with, it's not really an option, right? That's kind of a specific option. Is that the way to say it? Like, you guys all know each other from the Gun Channels days, and
You've got to mesh a little bit. We've talked about that before. I think maybe last week or something when we were talking about cost. But I mean, cost, sharing or splitting stuff. You definitely, there's a certain amount of meshing that has to go on. I mean, your content doesn't have to be the same. It really doesn't have a lot to do with that. But you've got to be able to get along. You got to kind of have similar work ethics, things like that, right? But
that's
yes,
what I was gonna say.
last year was Rogues first. This year will be Budgets first.
So there is that, and I guess I'll just throw that out there. If you're looking to save money, let's put it that way. If you're looking to save money, or if you're looking to coach or be coached, think about that. And you don't have to necessarily know somebody ahead of time. There's plenty of situations where people, what's that called? Like, just room together on an adventure or a trip or something. You could be at a training event. You could be at some kind of Disneyland or something, and you just figure out a way to share expenses. I mean, when we went to Wanamaker that time, the big time, a bunch of people just knew that they wanted to go and kind of said, "Hey, I'm a single and I'll share a room with somebody," kind of thing, and everybody just kind of got matched up or whatever, picked partners type of thing, and they didn't necessarily know if they were going to be compatible as roommates or whatever. We're only talking about a few days, and you're probably, especially in something like Vegas, you got plenty of opportunities for other things to do, and more than likely, unless you're not interested or something not able, you got options almost all the time in the before SHOT Show stuff, during SHOT, of course, and then after the show. We've talked about some of the after events and stuff. So there's opportunity to not have to be what's the word, like stuck with a roommate or something that you don't enjoy. But I think that's an element of it that we probably haven't addressed, and I guess I'm just mansplaining if no one's got any questions about it. But then the other side of it is going to the NRA conventions. Now, it's too late now. I don't think anything. The only thing that happens between now and then is the Sheep event in Reno. So I guess you could probably go to that. All the big gun shows are over. I might be wrong. There might be a big gun show in Florida or something I don't know about that She Fires might be able to get to. But she's already attended some giant gun shows, had some experiences filming there. But I know that we've mentioned it before. I'll just, so that I'm not on a rant here, the idea of going to other conventions ahead of time.
Yeah, I think it helps if you have those opportunities, I think that at a certain point, and again, I jump back to Snob, and because he articulated this to Chris really well, you can regret not going to SHOT if your channel, especially if your channel is at a certain point and you're in a position that you can actually make it happen, right? I think there is some regret there. But again, you get into that whole nuance of your channel, I think has to be, in the right spot. And so, maybe that's making an event beforehand. Every event's going to be different. I mean, the layout, obviously the layout, the city you're in, the attendance, there's things like that. But just the vibe, the way you get around, the way it's handled by not only the attendees, but the exhibitors, the time of the year it happens. I mean, SHOT Show is right at the first of the year. So it's not mixed up and muddled up. As far as new releases for products and pushes of those products, because there's a new release, most of that happens, around SHOT, around the first of the year. So as you get later in the year, you get, potentially less and less, let's just say, search traffic on those things. So, there can be a little bit of a downside, to that. But yeah, as far as the experience, it definitely helps. At least it gives you some semblance of kind of what to expect.
All right, and then going forward, there's a lot of, he says there's a lot of media that I saw last year that were filming with phones and good quality microphones and lights. You kind of talked about that in an earlier one, so I think it was like the one we called Gear, or at least one of the ones we attempted to call Gear.
Yeah, that's the one I was kind of talking about with CloverTac about too. Yep.
With microphones and stuff.
Yep, and high quality cameras as well.
Yeah, like I say, the cameras are going to be, here's another thing, just since we're talking about it again, the higher the quality of the camera, the more heavy it's going to be and more fancy it's going to be. So there's more potential for it to get broke and then be expensive to fix and then a pain. You can have two medium cameras often for the price of one really good one, and you can get like a decent one and a bad one for the price of a good one, right? There's like some ways to chop that up. You can get a couple of junk ones for the price of it, and then you can not spend any of that money and spend that money on something else for going with a phone. So there are options, and there's different levels of it. And then
now recently, I had purchased me a GoPro Hero 8. Now I heard that that's a good quality camera. That's why I had bought me one. So I ended up buying a GoPro Hero 8 that I use my videos, that I use on my content. So
I have no idea. I'm not in the market for them, so I don't ever buy them.
Oh, okay.
I don't know anything about them. Other people can probably have a conversation about which ones. I'm just talking about theoretically, like having a nice one. A GoPro is a totally opposite of what I was thinking of. I was thinking big fancy SLR with stuff hanging off of it, and then it gets cumbersome and then I was gonna say fragile, but then just the thing you got to carry around, and it's like
Yeah.
use it, you leave in the bathroom or something, and it's like then you got to go run and find it. But a GoPro, I think it would be super easy. I think Snob's filmed with a GoPro, but I don't know if Clover ever has. Or do you guys use?
I've asked Chris about it, and he pretty much put me on with the GoPro, so that's why I ended up getting one, and it works really good. So
talking about Chris in here, use them, yeah.
The GoPros are great for being outdoors. Now, once you get inside, they don't have a big enough sensor to work well indoors. Now, when you're outdoors, they're great cameras, especially they're rugged. I mean, that's, I can't tell you how many competitions I've shot wearing a GoPro, and I've never had to worry about it getting broke. But now once you get indoors with one, now you're going to start suffering because you don't have a big enough sensor for the
it needs
indoor lighting. Yeah.
Now, SHOT Show is pretty bright. So, Clover, did you have a GoPro at SHOT ever?
I don't think I've ever taken a GoPro to SHOT.
Do you know of anybody that did?
But I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with newer GoPros. I think past like the 4 or something. And to me, GoPros annoy me because they're wide angle and they have that fisheye effect to them or whatever, and it drives me insane. And they're okay for like outdoors and B-roll and range footage type stuff. Okay, but like for interview settings and things like that, they just drive me absolutely up the wall. So I never used them for that.
Those are things to keep in mind, but you can also edit down and have them for B-roll. So for the range and stuff, like I can definitely see a GoPro, but again, I'm not a big camera guy. And I guess I was just going to say, you got to always balance. There's going to be good things, and then there's going to be bad things. And I'm always talking about the bad things here, but Clover, I think you mentioned there a minute ago that stuff can get stale if you take pictures of a backpack and go, here's the backpack at SHOT Show 2023. We're covering SHOT Show 2023, and here's the booth, and here's a part of the booth. It's the backpack. Yeah, that's going to have a perishable lifespan or whatever you'd say. Like at some point, people are like, oh, I'm not caring about the news of the day anymore. But if you do a thing where you're like, hey, I'm looking at a backpack for whatever, for camping. I'm looking at a backpack that you might use for hunting. And here it is. We're at the booth in SHOT Show 2023, and so-and-so is going to tell us about it. And now you're going through and you're looking at that backpack. That's a little different. You got that other channel where you actually can make money because it doesn't touch guns. YouTube's happy with it, and you make actual views over there. That's a different kind of video. And in that realm, if you take stills of something and get great stills, well, you can't go to most stores and get great stills of product because one, it's out of the box. Probably 100 other people have touched it and it looks all used already, or it's just not conducive to you just using it as a showroom. Where SHOT Show often has backdrops and stuff that are stunning. So they spend a lot of money and effort on, have branding and everything. So I don't want to discourage someone taking a camera. You could go in there and just win SHOT Show by taking product images. And I'm sure there's probably people we just don't talk to because they don't have any interest in talking to us about our cell phone, GoPro lifestyles over here. When they're going in there with probably $20,000 SLRs and taking pictures that make them their paychecks for the rest of the year, or potentially. So, there is that potential. I don't want to discourage anybody who's got something that they're into. And I'm definitely not, I'm talking from experience not from experience diving into any of these realms to any extent other than surface, I would say.
Everyone has their own ways on how they want to do their channels or, take pictures and use their.
And every channel that exists came from somebody doing that.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like there was a way to do it. And then they said, okay, now we need somebody to do it this way. And then somebody came in and applied for the job. Everybody just added their contribution, and some of it was appreciated and some of it had to be refined and some of it's still growing.
So while we're talking about filming, and I hope this question hasn't been asked, but as far as filming on range day, I kind of wanted to, because I know you and Clover have both obviously been to range day. So obviously, if you're going up to shoot a gun, you're probably pretty limited on. I mean, from videos I've watched, I know you're only going to get like 10 rounds or less to shoot through that gun. And in my situation, like I'll be good at SHOT Show as far as my son has a pass, so he'll be there helping me film, but he is not going to range day. So do you guys like have your camera already on a tripod and you just kind of put it up before you shoot, or are you grabbing, say, Clover's grabbing Snob to film him while he shoots a gun?
That's a great question. So, Ghost and I know Ghost and some other folks, and of course I have my wife as well that'll be with me, have swapped out with filming. And so that is a much better situation if you can pair up with somebody. And there will be, once you get to range day, there's going to be some people you can pair up with if you want to, right? I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but obviously Budget, Rogue, myself, Ghost, whoever. That's the easiest typically, because you're not toting around a tripod. You're not having to try to get it set up and do other things. So I think it's my opinion. I think it's optimal if you can kind of help out and pair up, and maybe you're not even pairing up all day, but if you happen to be in a booth in line with somebody, you just walk in there and take turns and swap out. The other thing is, I've given my phone to whoever the company person was before, and they'll film it, because I'm just filming for B-roll there at range day. I'm not filming like interview style stuff and all of that. For me, that's just not the setting for that type of thing. I may catch some audio, like, hey, tell me about this, right? And I'll clip the microphone on just for that. But I'm filming B-roll and stuff while they're, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to throw that over B-roll or whatever, while ever they're talking about that feature or whatever it might be. So, it's to me, it's low quality production. I mean, when it comes out, it looks a lot better than I think it's going to almost every year. I think there's a lot of opportunity as well with SHOT Show, and especially with shorts this year. To utilize that to crank out, basically shorts you can crank out shorts all week at SHOT Show just from what you've got at range day. So you're talking about, 2 or 3 shorts potentially a day pretty easily. You would have that, and you would be putting out content during the week of SHOT, right? And then if you were to film both ways, vertical and horizontal, or maybe you can film horizontal and crop it. I mean, whatever I guess you've got to do to make it work both ways. But yeah, I think tripod free, I think, is probably the way to go. If you can partner up, buddy up, and swing it, for sure.
All right, thank you, Clover. That's kind of what I was thinking, but I wanted to get your opinion. So yeah, appreciate that.
I'd think about a selfie stick type of situation, or like a monopod that you can use, like on a to crank the camera on 90 degrees and hold it if you're interested in doing that style or whatever. There's another option if you're using a phone, I guess, or I guess any camera that has a flip around screen thing. People don't care, but whoever you're chatting with, range day, here's how it's going to go. You're either going to meet somebody who's, you're going to walk up to a booth, and you're either going to get there early in the day or late in the day, right? So that's going to factor. You're going to talk to somebody in the booth, and they're either a brand new employee or they've been there a million times, and that's going to be a factor. So you go there early in the day, and you meet somebody who's never been there before either, and now you're 2 newbies bumping into each other, and who knows how that's going to happen. It might be great, or it might be horrible, right? Who knows? You might get the old person who's been there a million times, and they're going to basically coach you. Oh, yeah, do whatever you want, guy. Here you go. Welcome to SHOT Show. or you're going to get some other version of that, right? So that's my thing. Is that you might get somebody who's going to hold the thing for you. You might have somebody around. Have them hold the selfie stick, right? You're holding my selfie stick and make it look better, or be prepared to not have anything, but definitely not a tripod. I can't imagine anybody who would give you the advice to bring a tripod other than somebody who's watching it like me. I could take a tripod and do some things with a tripod because I'm trying to cover the event, where if you're trying to cover an item on the event, it would be, I can't imagine anything more useless. Maybe bringing like a whole light rig on tripods would be the only more useless thing you could bring, because it's just going to get in the way. No one's going to let you set it up. I can't imagine anybody even let you set it up anymore in 2023. Or if
Yeah,
they did, they would
sounds
quickly learn to not do that anymore.
sounds very complicated.
It's just too crowded. It would be like going on a roller coaster and asking if I should bring, or asking to set up a tripod. Hey, can I set up my tripod in the line for the roller coaster? And then everybody's just not there for that.
I don't know. I got a different opinion on that. I think that they would, talking about the booth, I think they would allow it.
They'd accommodate it.
I mean,
probably.
they understand, but they're
they'd
certainly
be going
not
like-
going to like it. And the people waiting in line behind you are probably not going to like it. You're taking up even more time to, even if it only takes you 3 or 4 minutes to set it up. But you got to realize you got to get the tripod out, and you got to, and that the times, trying to think how many times I've been that I took a tripod. I know at least once.
Oh, but you didn't even use it, I bet.
Well, I did. No. I have before. And what I would do though is, and I've used the tripod at other range events that don't have the brevity or the lines, of course, that's got. But what I'm saying is, I've usually got my tripod out, extended. All I've got to do really is set up and frame everything and hit go, right? And that takes very little time. So if you are going to use a tripod, I would say do that. I mean, have your legs, all the way extended, not spread out. Most tripods you can extend the legs, right? Without spreading it out. Maybe not spread it out for the sake of bumping into somebody or whatever. And pay attention when it's spread out. So you're not poking somebody with your tripod, but go ahead and have as much stuff ready to go as you can possibly have, right? Once you get up to that firing line, that way you can drop the tripod, swivel it around, get your shot, present the firearm a couple times, make sure you're good, you're within the frame, and go with it. But it wouldn't be optimal. I would definitely agree with that.
All right.
So
So
no,
go ahead.
I was going.
No, go ahead. Like I was saying, don't bother. If you're interrupting me, just keep
go ahead,
talking,
Mike.
because otherwise we'll talk all day. Go ahead.
I was saying, now I know where, say, like if you want to get some footage of something like shooting a gun or trying to get this, trying to get that. I know there's people out there are just going to ignore you or don't even want to pay no attention to you in general. They just only focusing on them or focusing on what they want to get and what they trying to record as well. Or even if they don't have no camera or phones or whatever, they'll just sit there and just ignore you.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's not necessarily they're there like, I'm going to go ignore people. They're just there enjoying it and being overwhelmed and not realizing that they're getting in the way of 4 people as they're doing whatever they're doing. And that's just, you got to not be upset about that, really. Now,
Yeah, that's true.
About tripods, I was going to add to what Clover said, that you're going to experience everything bad about tripods from the Europeans that'll be there doing everything we don't want to do with tripods. Yeah. So you'll see everything I've been like, oh no, it's a pain for this and that, or everything everybody's been saying it would be a pain.
It's true.
Because the Europeans will be there acting like, oh no, we spent $1 million to get here. So here's the thing. We're going to spend 45 minutes shooting this thing 5 times, the dumb gun that you can get in Europe or whatever.
Yep.
I'm not even worried about the cool stuff. And they're just super rude because of their weird culture over there. So you're going to experience every which way. And then you'll also, we haven't been talking about this enough. You're going to SHOT Show for your first time with 2,500 other media. Let's say that 500 of those media are brand new. So that means 2,000 of them ain't. And we know that it's not 500 are brand new. It's way less than that, but some amount of them are brand new. That means the rest of that 2,500 have been there before. If you ever wanted to go to a how to do media at SHOT Show school, well, you're already there. You're in it, right? We're trying to give you some advanced heads up. but when you're there at media day, you're learning from everybody you've ever seen before, because that's the only thing they're going to show up for, that you'll have to be in the same
Well,
aisles
and,
with them. Everything
and I
else,
have,
random chance you'll see somebody you know, but at media day, you're going to see everybody you ever seen before.
so there's people being in the way, right?
Well, if they're there.
I have very little patience for things like that, and it aggravates my wife sometimes. But everybody knows what I'm talking about. You're in the grocery store, you run in, you got your list, and there stands a man or a woman or whatever, and they're pondering over, what you need is in front of them, and they're pondering over all the brands and can't make up their mind. And they've got about 3 seconds to make up their mind before I walk up and go, "Excuse me, I need to get this." And I don't do it in a rude voice or anything. I'm nice about it, but "Excuse me, I just need to grab this real quick," and grab it and go. Right. And so, if there's somebody that is in the way and they look to be oblivious, whatever. Now, if they're doing something, obviously, if you got two people standing there having a conversation, like, that's rude. Don't do that. But if somebody's just staring into space, or, standing in the wrong spot, or they're in your frame, or, just ask them, say, "Hey, I'm trying to film. Could you, maybe take a step back or step to the side," or, whatever the case may be. And like I said, just don't be rude or hateful about it, but let them know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, Sometimes I fall into that where I'm just standing around staring into space, and I don't mind it one bit when somebody calls me out on it.
I'm going to take a second because we're digging into this show, but I don't care. We can spend here all day if we want. I'm down with that. Everybody's been offering she fires. I'm just going to stand up and mansplain for she fires. Every lady doesn't want to meet every other lady, and you're all going to have to learn that at some point. But just because you know a lady and she's a lady doesn't mean they want to meet each other and hang out with each other. And it's good intentions, but every lady doesn't like to hang out with every other lady. Just like if they came up to you and said, "I know another guy and you're going to hang out together," you're going to go, "What now?" So I understand there's good intentions there, but let everybody do their own thing. And somebody's not going to, new people aren't going to necessarily have the balls to get up and say that. So I'm going to mansplain that for everybody. And if I'm completely wrong, then she can tell me to shut up. But I've gotten that feedback from
Completely
many
depends
ladies over the
on
years.
completely depends on how they line up on things.
For sure.
Depends on, when we're talking about SHOT Show companies and products that may line up. There are some benefits to it. I don't know if you're speaking to what I said about my wife out there, but
I'm just talking about the shower of offers.
My wife is privy to information. Wasn't an issue of putting them together because they're girls. It's my wife is privy to information pertaining to females in the firearm industry and stuff. I'm not. So she can provide insight that way. Yeah.
I hear you. I'm just saying, I'm just going to miss all dudes.
But I agree with you. Yeah, women, there are
of
plenty of women that do not get along in the firearm industry. I totally agree with
But
you on that.
And it's our tendency to try to help.
Yeah.
And that's just what I'm saying. So anyway,
and men too. It's not a gender thing, but yeah.
No, the ladies get it from each other, I'm sure. I'm just telling the guys because I know how to tell we know how to talk to each other. So anyway, Ghost was addressing your thing though. One thing also, if you're in a booth and not ready to record, stay out of the way for the ones that are filming. And that's an awesome thing too. I was mentioning, you're going to get a kind of a behind the scenes of what it's like to be a content creator. So you can stand there for a minute and you're going to need to probably wait your turn for whatever, unless you happen to be right there, first. So you're waiting your turn and there's somebody else up there filming. There's somebody asking a question. There's somebody doing a podcast. There's somebody writing notes for their blog or something. You're seeing everybody do their job. So you're able to watch and take notes of yourself, or like how people do their thing, what equipment was working, what was comfortable, what seemed like it was not working. And as far as tactics and strategies, Ghost has a great point about, sorry, that was my dog doing it. When you're pace yourself or get your stuff figured out, when we were talking about learning how to work a camera before you go into one of these other shows to get prepared. You don't have time to go to any other large shows before now and then, but there's definitely have the option to go to a shooting range on any weekend when it's noisy and just film in the parking lot. You don't have to even do anything really. Just go somewhere noisy and film, and then go home and edit it, and then be critical, get people's feedback on it, and go repeat that process over and over, because that's really the best way. And once you've got your stuff down, now you can go there competently and pretty sure you're going to get staged and be ready, stand up there, get your stuff done. Okay, so that's answering the question about the tripod and kind of talking about the rhythm of doing these things. But in the bigger picture of your relationship with this person that you're either trying to do a review with or create a larger long-term relationship with, those first impressions. So you walk up, you're clumsy and you never used your gear before, and now you're eventually leading up to let's work together. Well, that's what you started it with. Now you walk up and you're like, no problem, let's take care of this. Click, click, click. They barely remember you were there, except that you were the one that seemed the most aware of their product or the most aware of what they were there for. You made the best impression on them, but you weren't a nuisance. And then they see your video later and it's good. It's not bad. And they're like, wow, this person's a pro. They came up and got this and they got that out of it. And they didn't take up any of my time. Like if I got to decide who I'm going to be working with, do I want to work with somebody that can just get it done or somebody that's figuring it out? And I know that's a lot to lay on somebody their first time, but work towards that, right? Like understand that there's more to it than just the filming of the stuff. It's more than just your videos or your channel. The big picture, you're laying down your bricks, your foundation, lay it out with the rooms you want, lay it out with the size you want, even if it's a little big right now, big goals, have them, right? You can always adjust goals smaller. It's tougher to adjust them bigger. It's frustrating to try to adjust them bigger when you can't. But if you get them too big and you got too many people beating down the door to work with you, that's a good place to be in.
Yeah, that's very true.
All right, so going back to the questions, G23, remember he's over there watching the hearing for Measure 114 in Oregon, doing real Second Amendment work this morning. We've got a link out there on our channel and in the description of this video. But earlier, like an hour or something ago, he asked Ghost when he was in here, how many badges can you get as media? Or I think he just asked Ghost in the chat, actually. How many badges can you get as media? That's a good question. A media entity can bring more than one person in, like a television station or something, or some big cable TV show is going to bring in a lighting person, a key person, or whatever they're called, grips, and all the different roles that they're going to have all those people with media access. And I guess I don't know as much about that level, but you can have a decent sized media group come in with, let's say, a dozen people. So to answer your question, how many badges can you get? One per individual, and then your crew or your group can have a number of them depending on the size. Without getting into it, it's not like it's not that I'm aware of. It's no formula or anything. It's just they don't like giving out hundreds of dollar passes for nothing. So you kind of have to have a reason to have them. Now,
they need to be a
every year is
legit
different.
media of your crew. Is basically what it is. So
yeah, and there's ways you can do that. So what they're not going to appreciate is somebody stacking a bunch of so-and-sos on their media badges.
Right.
They already have limited gun shops from bringing everybody in the crew. Now, if it's a giant shop with multiple locations and they bring 7 managers, that's different than we're going to bring, my one shop with 1,000 square foot location is going to bring our 2 full-time employees and our 4 part-time employees. Like, they've already asked people not to do that just because it clutters the aisles. Or there's like we're the shooting club at the shooting range, so we're going to SHOT Show. Well, they've asked the gun ranges, hey, you can bring your range masters out and you can bring your facilities people out if you need, because those have a reason to be here. Maybe even if you had like a shooting club or something, and the heads of those organizations could show up. But when you start bringing out the shooters and you start bringing out, every organization that's ever met at the club, then it gets to be, we can't give, even if I think they pay a discounted rate, honestly, but I don't remember. But so there is a limit, and I don't know if it's laid out, but I don't see too many people doing it. So I'm guessing that I don't know. It's a good question though. And that's what I was going to say. You guys were talking about it earlier, and G23 asked, so can you get a badge for your camera person? So in other words, could you attend SHOT Show without having any kind of a channel at all and go to SHOT Show for free with somebody else? Yeah, 100%. Yes, that can definitely happen. It has happened. And that's why they have accessory badges. Now, you should be prepared to do something for that, right? Like, unless the person is completely just taking advantage of the whole situation or whatever, hopefully you're doing something in return for that. So doing that, holding their camera for them or whatever, You haven't done that. I've had camera people. Guess what? I don't have camera people. It's not a fun job. Nobody likes doing it. Nobody wants to go to SHOT Show to do something for somebody else. There's a couple of people that'll do it. Most people don't want to do it unless you're paying them. And from my experience, you cannot pay them enough to go into SHOT Show and do it. They're always going to want some more money because it's not worth it to them. Maybe somebody's mileage will vary, but like say, SHOT Show isn't looking to have just everybody pile in, like a drive-in movie thing where somebody drives in and alone with a car with a big trunk, and then 8 people jump out of the trunk with their own food.
Yeah. So let's take Chris's situation, right? Because he's got his son, which is essentially his camera person, right? So Chris has an established channel, and it's pretty well established that his son is the cameraman and a part of his crew, right? That's a much different situation than I've got a channel with just barely 1,000 subscribers, which is not necessarily the threshold. I mean, they put it out there because obviously there are big podcasts and writers and other things that aren't on YouTube at all. But, we're talking from a gun tuber standpoint. Let's say you barely have 1,000 and, you want to bring your 2 sons and your uncle and your nephew, and your first cousin. And you give all of them roles like gWebs explained. Oh, this is my editor. This is my writer. This is my cameraman. It's like, that's going to look shady, right? Like they understand that, smaller channel. Okay. You've got somebody that holds a camera for you that helps you out, right? You might even have a couple of people. It may be your wife and your son. It may be whatever. Right. And so they get that. And so one of the most important things that we see is when you're talking about your crew and we're talking about being able to validate things and getting people into SHOT Show, is having those people having credentials in the form of credit. In other words, within the description or your video or on your website or whatever the case may be, it's got credit to. I'll use Chris's example, the picture of his son, and it's got a little blurb there that he's the cameraman, right? And I mean that validates all of that. It's not like a faceless person or just an empty. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking kind of like a blank check. It's not like a blank check situation where you just get a badge and you can hand it to anybody.
Here's your pass, and here's your pass for your buddy, and it's just the buddy pass with no name on it. It's not like that. Everybody signs up and has a name on their badge.
Right. Now, in contrast, I did have an interesting situation with NRA, and I don't remember which year, in which, my wife is billed basically as, the photographer and the editor, which she definitely helps with those things or has in the past. And so I had an issue with NRA one time where some events transpired and wasn't really sure if she was going to be able to make it. Right. And it was really open with their registration and their process. Right. It's like, okay, just tell us your name. Okay, who are you with? Okay, how many's in your crew, right? And it's not nearly as formal as the registration for SHOT Show, but you got to realize it goes back to the conversation we had very early on this live, that you're talking about the NSSF, a massive organization, as far as influence wise, anyway, with the industry and all of that, and they want professionalism. And you bringing a family reunion into SHOT Show just to get people into SHOT Show is anything but professional. gWebs unfortunately dropped out, so I don't know if he had. I don't know what happened there.
I don't know where he went to. Oh my goodness!
You got tired of me talking, I guess. So
I know I was going to bounce out so you guys can do your wind down.
There he is.
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you. Oh,
we got a lot of questions. You can jump if you want, but we've got a lot of questions. We'll be here for a minute or two.
No, before I hop out, I just wanted to say thank you for letting me come up on the panel and ask my questions and all the weeks of questions answered. You all have been great.
You bet. We don't know everything, but we'll give you our opinion. Hopefully there's other people out there that'll offer the same. So if there's something that we've, offered or something, then feel free to run it past somebody, because there's lots of people with different experiences that might have, you know,
Yes.
other angles
Thanks
for you.
again. Yeah. Okay.
All right, thanks for jumping in.
Bye.
All right, so getting a badge for a camera person, I'm guessing you talked about that, and I don't know. I think I just kind of, I wasn't saying anything. I just stopped. My internet disconnected.
Yeah, we covered
But I think that's a great point. Just be the best, you know, be a valuable camera person if you're going to do that, because you can make or break a channel. You can kill a channel by sucking at being a camera person, and you can
True.
channels that very few channels are individuals. In fact, I should say very few large channels can be individuals. They have to be multiple crews after a while. Next one is from Ghost YouTubers. And if we're missing stuff, feel free to leave questions out there. If you're a new person, there is a link out there. Kind of a messy show, but you know, all our shows are messy, I guess. But okay. Ghost saying, if YouTubers have a unique way to get free advertising for companies, they would rather work with YouTubers instead of print magazines these days. And then he had another comment. I'm not going to be able to find it because it was from a while ago, but he said something about like how much it costs or the time or something. So YouTubers are definitely different. YouTubers are unique in that there's a new one born every minute, you know how they say? So YouTubers come along and they get used and exploited just like any other resource. So you have a channel, and some people value your viewers probably more than you do if they've been in the game for a while, because most people don't value their own voices and what they're offering to the mix. So people are going to see that you're a new YouTuber, and they may or may not participate in what you're doing or whatever. But yeah, there's definitely people out there that, or there's entities out there, companies, manufacturers, or whatever. I'd say it's probably on the lower end stuff, because that's usually the stuff that's, let's just put it generally, the stuff that gets very little attention because it's either commodity or often copied, or it's a copy of, right? Like the flashlight, for example, a pocket flashlight, very difficult to be a unique pocket flashlight at any way. Like for a minute there was the LEDs when it was all mini mags or whatever, or what they were called. I can't remember. You know what I mean? But whenever I went from bulbs to LEDs, there was probably a cool flashlight for a minute. Whenever they went from one kind of battery to the next kind of battery and they got really bright, that was probably for a minute or two. You could have like a cool flashlight. Nowadays, like pick a flashlight company, and you know they're all just versions of each other at this point. Keychains or leather wallets or something, or I guess any kind of wallet. You know, those kind of things. Probably easier to, or probably more of a potential for those companies to just shower that stuff out there. And the problem is, I think I kind of mentioned it before, but you can come home with SHOT Show happy and experienced and satisfied. You can come home with SHOT Show frustrated and what's the word, like envious because somebody else brought home more swag, or somebody came home with a better deal, or somebody came home with better relationships or whatever. So there's going to be people that seek something out of SHOT Show, come home with a bunch of little stuff, and then they create a channel full of a bunch of little stuff, and then their audience turns into people who are interested in little stuff, and then they go, what didn't work? You know, how come next year at SHOT Show I didn't gain anything, you know? So I spent some time, and I wouldn't say that any of those companies took advantage. It's just that they took advantage of somebody who's willing to work with them. And if you don't realize that there's going to be people out there that'll hand you anything, and if you fill up your cart with the stuff from people that'll hand you, maybe that's what you say. Like if you went in and got a bunch of free samples someplace, and then say, hey, I'm having lunch, and it's a bunch of free samples from Costco or something, somebody's going to go, hey, it's a great lunch, but no, thank you. I'm not interested in a bunch of free samples from Costco. I could go get those myself if I wanted or whatever. You know, nobody's looking for that lunch. Is that the way to say it? Like, you know what I'm saying? You can be careful with the way the companies are going to want to treat you. On the other hand, there's ones out there that may not realize how valuable you are. So I'm trying to give you the idea, like, don't get bogged down and get taken advantage of, and value your voice, because there's a lot of companies out there that, depending on what your focus is and how you're building your channel and where you want to go, because that's what matters. Who cares what you've already done? This is 2023. It's about the stream, it's about the flow, and it's about the feeds, right? So what's next? What direction are you going in? What do you need to achieve that? And if you've done X, Y, Z, unless you're done, then you're not saying this is what I've done, period. Hold on. You're not saying this is, hold on. I don't know what happened there. Probably been talking for 2 hours. That other GunTube lets us know exactly how long we've been talking, so we could probably throttle ourselves. But it's not how much you've done, period. It's how much you've done in order to go where you're going. And if you can get that across to the company you're trying to work with, or the thing you're trying to get accomplished, that can be a big part of it too, right? Like, this is what I've done so far, but here's where I'd like to go, and you could be a big part of that. Want to jump? Want to go with me? And because people out there know by now that print media is not dead as much as YouTubers want to act like it is, and I was on that bandwagon for a minute. It's not dead, and it's not going anywhere. It's necessary, and we shouldn't be rooting for its demise. It exists, and it is what it is, but it has its plus and minuses. There's lots of pluses. I'll let it defend itself, but its minuses are that it takes forever for it to happen. So whatever happens at SHOT Show in the middle of January won't be in print until February at the earliest, and more like August normally. So it's kind of useless for immediacy, but it's usually supplemental. And like I say, all of its advantages that it exists in real space forever, is, who cares if it takes a couple of months, because it's going to exist forever. But people understand that they don't have to choose one or the other. Unless they're paying $1 million for one or the other, then they can afford to do both, right? And if you can be a free or inexpensive option for one side, even if they are using the other things, the print media or the radio or the television or some other thing that isn't YouTube, then you can be that inexpensive YouTube edition, right? Or option, or extra. I don't know if you want to throw in. I'm sure Clover has opinions on print magazine, and Ghost comment here.
Yeah, I'm going to have to bail here in a minute. I'm about less than 10 minutes away from a massive thunderstorm hitting, so I do not want to be here instead of in the house.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, then, let's see. The Ozzy saying the female market is one of the fastest growing.
Yep.
Cheap Fires might be aware of that.
She is.
That's what I'm saying. We have a tendency to tell ladies, because we're not used to ladies being around. So ladies, here's a mansplaining. Dudes ain't used to chicks coming around, and chicks or dudes, chicks ain't used to you being nice to them. They are, they're skeptical at least, and suspicious, right? So when we're trying to be nice, they're not used to that. It's not what they expect. So give it a couple of more years, and everybody will be used to it. But we still got people out there that go, there need to be women in the gun community. I mean, that literally still gets said today. So we're not quite to where everybody realizes females have already taken over the gun community.
Right.
So I hear you. The girls out there, thanks for being patient with the dudes. They are attempting to be helpful, and I'm sure you already know that. So I don't have to mansplain that side. Have the great rest of the day, and get ready for his live stream. It's still happening over there. I'm having bad internet myself, but not because of range, just because the internet hates me or whatever, YouTube censorship. But G23 is out there streaming the hearing for the Oregon Measure 114. Okay, so Milsurp said, I also don't go to SHOT for my YouTube channel. I'm going for the podcast that I am on, so I'm working on double the stuff. That's a great point. You don't, we're very YouTube centric because we're on YouTube, and both of us like YouTube, and I was happy to be one of the people that introduced YouTube to SHOT Show. I like to think I introduced websites to SHOT Show in 2005. Thank you all very much. And then, in other words, as a qualifier to be media. And then I wasn't like necessarily the only one, but I was the largest YouTube channel going to SHOT Show for a couple of years. And I did that, I think, in a nice way, so that the industry and YouTube and SHOT Show all dealt with it. I mean, I think I could have been a lot more heinous and a lot more exploitive, and I could have really soured it. I'm sure I soured it for some people along the way, because I am, you may not have realized this, I'm honest. I don't have anybody paying me to have an opinion, so I have opinions. And occasionally when people aren't authentic, they get offended by what I say. But and so I'm sure I offended people that are authentic along the way, but very few, because usually I respect authenticity and leave it alone. I will point out some of the exploitation, especially when it takes away from the overall community, from my perspective of being just objective, I hope. But anyway, for those reasons, I'm really enjoying the evolution of SHOT Show, and the idea that, this question is, he's going as a podcast. There's a lot more podcasts out there. Some of the largest entities out there are podcasts. I can't tell you how much I enjoy some of the military podcasts. Now that I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about how this is going to be an opportunity this year to bring a whole nother level of people. And that's something I hope they're not listening to my show right now, but I'm actually going to reach out to a bunch of them and let them know, hey, if you want what I can offer, you got it. Because I mentioned that to Second Amendment advocates. If you're hesitant, if you're still on the fence, I guess, about going to SHOT Show, Clover helped looked it up. We got till the end of the week. So if you're listening to this and you're not just a gun person, gun people, hey, we'll give you all the advice you want. Clover might help you more than me. But if you're a Second Amendment advocate, you got whatever you want from me. Like if you're doing valid work on what our Second Amendment protects in a new angle or a realm in another way, I'll get you there. We'll make sure you get there. But if you're one of those military podcasts, oh man, I can't wait to meet some of those guys and let them, give whatever secrets they might want about the show, because we've got a whole new realm of people, like I say, coming in. Think of commuters, think of anybody who just likes to take time away from this flash in the pan instant media, right? Instant social medias, and get to the more long format, authentic, explanatory and nuanced podcasts. And those are super cool. So yeah, going for your podcast, I think, is probably winning idea. It's a growing, it's a upward rising platform or position to take, or whatever you'd call it, like technology to bring to the show. I wish I knew more about audio. I've listened to Amanda Suffolk will tell me about that $100 something device she has. I don't have $100, but it seems like a neat device. And then she has like $200 headsets. I mean, I'm like, okay, you got two $250 headsets and a $150 device. That's how much money it cost me to go to SHOT Show this year. So I'm not in the same ballpark as everybody else, but it would be cool to hear more about people that are recording audio. I got posted a thing for a microphone that you would use like to get the background noise. It's like an everything microphone. So it hears like water splashes and little noises, and you hold it up next to water pouring and it gets that SMR or whatever they call that noise. Just a wide range of all noises, as opposed to what most people want. They want the, specific mic. And I've thought about walking around SHOT Show with that just to hear everything. Although, that would be more like a weird podcast episode. I don't think you could do a whole channel or anything on that. And then Ghost is saying, I don't know, Clover, do you want to say anything about the podcast angle on that?
Only that, being multifaceted as far as, the platforms you're on, the type of content you do, that definitely can help from a,
oh crap. Chief Fires also threw $20 in. I really appreciate that.
Elevator.
Thank you very much.
Like your elevator speech and all, right? So that company working with you is not just getting, a review or a YouTube video, but now, potentially podcasts, social media posts, other things too. So it broadens what you bring to the table, I guess is what I'm saying.
And it broadens you as a creator, right? Once you know how something else works, you might not like it, but at least you know how it works. And if you do like it, then you've added a whole nother layer, right? So definitely explore them. You don't have to stick with everything. Ghost is a great point, and I want to make this. You just brought up another thing though, that elevator speech, and then earlier you brought up media kits. So why not next week we talk about elevator speeches and media kits?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and then we'll see another week, and then we'll have everybody who's been to SHOT Show before, and that'll give us, because some of them people ain't watching this, and we'll have to bug them about joining us in the morning or whatever. Right. I've also thrown the idea about having another show, this exact show, in the evening some night. I'm willing to talk about SHOT Show more. If Clover's in, then we'll just do another one at a time when people are maybe off work, because there are other people that are wanting to go.
Yeah, just do a bonus or something.
Yeah. So then Ghost brings up this one, and I'm going to offer this too, especially if you're a Second Amendment advocate, or if you're one of those military podcasters, you know who you are, the Team Room or Combat Story or Ed's Manifesto, or, well, Jocko doesn't want to listen to this one. He's pretty big. He's got help. But then Mike Ridland, if any of those ones that I've been listening to, or D. Moliere, of course, if they want help, then let's chat. I doubt they need it. But if they'd like to help people, I'd be down, because they're all bigger than us. But anyway, Ghost says to She Fires, let me know if you'd like to practice the elevator speech, I think, with me or anything like that. I'd love to help. So what do you think of this idea, Clover? What if we do an off-air workshop where it's basically this? We set up one of these rooms. Me and Clover are in there, and anybody who wants to throw elevator speeches at us for your projects, We'll act like somebody who's at SHOT Show listening to your elevator speech and give you feedback. We'll do that off there, so it can be private to you.
Right.
We'll have you in individually so that you're not having to do that in front of anybody except the two of us. Or if you want to talk to one of us individually, of course, feel free to do that. But that's an awesome idea. I really, really like that. Nobody's ever thought of that in all the years we've been doing stuff. At least I don't know if we all doing that. So I think that's something that we have as a resource, a potential, an opportunity as gun channels people that care about each other and each other's projects and each other's channels. We've got a month to do that. We can be we can have everybody going to SHOT Show so ready for having those elevator speeches. You can't even imagine. Let's take a second. I don't know. I'll let you say something here because I keep chatting. But can you imagine walking around SHOT Show and having an elevator speech that's, I'm just going to say, on point, and then having a media kit, 3 media kits, right? Especially, a selectable media kit that's just perfect, like either printed or on electric, depending on the person, so that you give them what they want, and you have a way to answer the peer at SHOT Show. You have a way to answer the potential customer, and you have a way to answer the fan, and then whatever other levels. But if you had all of those things on point, as opposed to winging it, how much more effective would SHOT Show be? 75% more effective?
Right.
Anyway.
Who
Although
knows?
you can say stuff on all those, but we'll finish it up. You got to get going because of the weather.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how much more effective? Yeah, I mean, we've had that. We've done things like that behind the scenes, and I know I have for years now. Helping people polish stuff out, listen to elevator speeches, helping with.
Once in a while, but nothing
never,
like we all said Thursday. We're going to listen to the elevator speeches.
Yeah, we've never had like a workshop. Never done a workshop thing on it, so that would be interesting. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I dig that. I can't imagine why we haven't done that. Nobody's ever brought it up, so thanks for bringing that up. That's awesome. And yeah, Clover or Ghost saying you got to do it all the time. Literally, you want to have I would say 6. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff next week and figure it all out. So again, thanks everybody for sticking with us for another 3 hours. Thanks most to She Fires for throwing me $20 and Chris for throwing me $20. You know how much money I made today? $40 minus the 30% YouTube takes out of it. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to go sell stuff on YouTube or on eBay. Actually, I got like $100 worth of stuff selling on eBay. So I don't know how to, that actually should be money from last week when I posted it, right? I don't know how to actually factor that in the equation, but do appreciate the super chats. I'm not buying ammo or doing anything fancy other than paying some bills with that. So thank you very much. But anyway, thanks to the people who showed up. Thanks for G23, who is at the moment live streaming the Oregon Measure 114 hearing. So the Measure 114, which is an onerous infringement on the rights of people in Oregon, which was created by a ballot measure at a very slight margin, is now being challenged at both the federal or the state level and then at the county level, based on the fact that it's against the Oregon Constitution, from what I understand. So what they have is a Zoom session going for the live hearing. So the people that are in Oregon are listening to this. We mentioned this when Mike asked something earlier. I think it was Mike asked something earlier about politics or the 2A fight at the moment. And because it was saying something about it being bad in Chicago, these things definitely swing. They're on pendulums. We're not on some kind of a situation where it's a ball bearing that falls off a shelf. If it was like that, we would have perished at one of the world wars or one of those at the Civil War or one of those world wars, or one of the economic stresses we've had or one of the health stresses we've had. We don't. Our system lives through that because it's a pendulum situation. It's a cycle. So when these things push, it's usually as a reaction to getting something that didn't go their way, and then there's going to be a consequence, and that consequence is playing out. So the true Second Amendment advocates out there like G23 that are willing to just drive his channel into the ground because he just does not care, so that he can help normalize the awareness of what's happening in a state like Oregon that's getting the national spotlight. Contrast that to the person who's going to be making tens, if not hundreds of thousands of views, summarizing in 3 minutes in an agenda-based way this evening what happened while G23 is streaming live. I'll shut up and let Clover end the show. Thanks everybody for joining us, though.
Oh, I'll just echo what you said and say it's been a great conversation, and thanks as always to those that are out there in the chat that are helping answer questions, give insight. Millsort Duo, Ghost, Smeggy was out there for a while. Obviously, the Gun Snob, so forth and so on, and for Mike, for She Fires, for Chris that jumped on. really looking forward to seeing what those guys and gals get done here in the very near future. So yeah, that's it from me.
Right on. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back with our next shows whenever they're next. Oh, you know what? We'll be back I'll start doing this. We're going to be back on Saturday with Tony Simon to AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007. And since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. That'll be Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, if I can remember my math.